Brace for impact. Are you ready, Graeme? Little theatrics here to start the episode. Just I'm just a little shell shocked right now. Facing Tempest and facing all the people preparing for Tempest. So hence the show, bracing for impact. Welcome, Graeme. You are not Jace, but you are joining me tonight for another episode of podcast, episode 167. At a certain point, this is going to become routine. Not yet, though. Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. So welcome, everyone, to another episode. We're going to be talking all things Tempest here tonight. We're going to do Make It Better episode, kind of for me and kind of for the folks out there that either haven't faced Tempest, have been anticipating, or maybe wanting to try it themselves. And just talking a little bit about the units. Not every unit in there, but some of the ones that I think you might have some sort of conversation around. We're going to talk a little bit about the command hand, primarily the ones that come in the print and play, and then we're going to talk about a battle deck, what you might want to take, and we're going to focus in on the ones that I've been taking, but open for interpretation and conversation for sure. We're also going to go through the comprehensive AMG breakdown, the Q&A that was out today. So pardon the reading in advance. We're going to be looking at it carefully and just sort of giving our analysis of that, what that means, what that translates to, and then talking a little bit about, our reactions to that. We're going to highlight some events coming up, a little bit about Patreon, because there is some stuff happening. I've been very busy in studio. Both on the hobby front, Patreon front, and also just some stuff going on in and around the train studio. So I'll share with you that information. And then I think if we have some time, we'll do a roundtable at the end, and that should end off the episode. A lot of screens tonight. These episodes that I always think are going to be filler always end up being quite a bit. So we'll talk about our last week in Legion. Graeme and I will get into that. AMG releases, what came out, if you got them. Obviously the Ewoks are out. I see photos everywhere, as well as the new ATST. I have mine. And then we'll talk a little bit about the league, if you've got any games in, or if there's any updates. Graeme's been playing some games. I have only played 2 so far. Most of my games have been practice games, not league games. And then we'll also talk about, like I said, Tempest Force Part 2. So, Graeme, what is shaking in your last week in Legion? How are you?
Pretty good. Besides working on some terrain for a dig of a table, then I got 2 league games in. So
nice.
It's 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 definitely a W list. 2 lats and 3 flutters and 2 Wookiee warriors just coming in.
Right. It's the
if it works, it's fun. If it loses, it's fun.
Yeah, fair. And who'd you play this? Because you're in my group, right? Yep. We have not played. You played Nick, though?
Not yet. Yes. Yep. Played Nick and Tyson.
Right, and Nick and Tyson. Yep. Yeah. Gotcha. I've played a couple folks from Tyson's neck of the woods, but and I played him in the last round. So, and then I also played Nick early on, where we have like, basically in our group we have we're like the Mando group. There's like Mandos everywhere running around in our group, which is kind of crazy. I don't know what's going on in the other group, but we just have a lot of Mandos, which is just ironic how that just all happened within there. I was wanting to play Remnant in the league group to continue practicing that, because that was pre my first Worlds tournament or chance at a Worlds qualifier, and Dark Troopers were banned, so I just went the Mando route just for funsies. So but now I've completely moved past Death Trooper or Dark Troopers. So
I mean, there's 7 units of Shadow Collective Mandos in this round, and they're all in our pod.
Okay, 7. Fair enough. We are the Mando group for sure. So, no, I've been enjoying them. I have also played against Mandos like several times recently. I think people are. I mean, I've played Mandos in the league. I've played against Mandos quite a bit because I think people are maybe thinking they might be good against Tempest. I played Mandos on Friday against Tempest. So all things Mandos in some shape or form. they're fun. They're great when they save. They can hit pretty hard. But I actually played against them yesterday, and while they were hard to take down, just like ones, and I was basically just chipping away one at a time. Um, Man, when they get those rockets off and like they can't follow up, they're not. They feel bad against Tempest. Like it's kind
Oh
of a
yeah.
it's one and done. And then especially if they, you know, four four impact into an ATST to eat 4 damage is not is not nothing. But when you have heals to take back half of that damage, and then when you can just send in 3 bikes after them, just do a lip like eviscerate them, it's
Mhm.
there. It's a bit of a feels bad because you don't have a follow up with them. It's kind of like they're single use, and Mandos are too expensive to be single use. So that's kind of what I've been finding. Or like I said, if they can sit there and just weather the storm, but you're really relying on those red dice saves. So, and then sometimes they just get run over and you die. So that also happens. So harken back to Friday. We'll talk a little bit about that as we get into the highlights for Friday. So, um, yeah, so that's what's going on there. So we'll talk more, Graeme, you and I, about kind of what we're running and thinking about running for sure. But let's talk a little bit about the AMG releases. Ewoks are out, ATST's out. What have you picked up so far? What are you anticipating picking up?
I've probably grabbed the ATSD because I only have one from the
For
Blizzard box.
shame. For shame.
Um, I don't have any regular Rebel troopers or scouts, so
Gotcha.
it's I got to start somewhere else before worrying about Ewoks.
Nine boxes of Ewoks, like that's just fine. You don't need the other things. So okay, gotcha. So you're gonna pick up the ATST. This week,
Yeah.
what did I pick up? I picked up an ATST, 4 boxes of Ewoks. I picked up the Wicket and Logray box, 4 boxes of Empire Scouts, and I think that's it. That was my this week Legion purchase. So that's a lot. I need to slow down. I was cleaning the studio today, and I am officially plumb out of room. I need another white shelf, or just need to stop getting things. So, but I won't stop getting things. So I'll have to get another shelf.
Never.
I guess that's the only logical conclusion is to get another shelf. So, um, I have also been painting. We're going to get into that. So I've been doing good, Graeme. Pat on my back. I've been actually painting and getting some things done. So, and that's rare for me, but summertime. But and I'll even show some of that. So show and tell will be upon us. So let's talk a little bit about the social medias. Just a small update. I've just decided that it's very difficult for me to maintain multiple Instagram accounts, so I'm going to rely on the guys to trail over some stuff on the FNF. But if you want to follow the Train Studio, I have made it a conscious effort, and I've done pretty good for the last week. Is I am posting on Instagram every day. So things that are happening. So if you want to see what's happening in the studio, paint wise, project wise, build wise, updates, just go check out the Train Studio on Instagram. You can subscribe to get all the info. All the other ones still apply. So we got the Twitter, obviously the Patreon. I'll give you guys an update there, and then Star Wars Friday Night Fights. Also on the unofficial terrain page, I'm always posting there, and the main pages as well. So you can find us if you want to go looking, and you shouldn't have to look too hard. So type in the Train Studio or Friday Night Fights, and you will find us on there. But if you want to go sub the Instagram, it'd be pretty good. There's like a little over 1,600 people already in, so that's good. I'm going to slow grow that as well, and it's free, and you can just keep track of the stuff that's going on there. And if you want to go down the rabbit holes and get into the other things, then you can. Obviously, I'll give you the breadcrumbs, and then you can follow them as much as you want. So that's that. Friday Night Fights, Graeme. I think Anthony might be back this week. Jace is out. He's
Okay.
out this one, and then I think he's back right at the end of the month. I am as well, and then I'm gone for 2 weeks. So I think we'll get 2 more in before August rolls around. So if you guys want to check that out, 8:30 CST, and if you want to go check out the last week's fight, it was super fun. Here's the highlights from that. I'm not sure if you got a chance to watch that one, Graeme, or not, but no spoilers, but it's a good one. And it was Jace piloting Scary Tempest Force. We'll talk a little bit about his list tonight. And then I was piloting double Mandos, triple Naked Pikes, a Black Sun, a bus, and 3 swoop bikes because I thought swoop bikes would be fun, and I haven't run the painted swoop bikes on the table that often. So super super fun one. We played Vaps. It's action pack from basically Act 1, and if you fast forward too fast, like I mean like Act 5 of turn 1, the bus is gone. Just saying, just foreshadowing. So make sure you watch it from the start. Yeah, the bus didn't last too long, sad face. But all the rest of the stuff happens. It's action packed from first roll to last. So go check that out, episode 89 there. So Patreon updates. If you've been following on the Patreon, you know that I've been working on a Shire project, or pseudo Shire project, for the Lord of the Rings game. Big work week this week. So the table is way past the pink stage. In fact, it's about 60% sculpt molded at this point. So look for the updates. There will be an update video on the Patreon tomorrow for project update. And there's quite a bit to talk about. So it progressed very quickly, logged probably about 30-40 hours this week, just getting all through. A lot of it's prep work, but starting to look different. And the more pink that disappears, the better I feel, because then pink goes to white, and white goes to brown, and then brown goes to green, and then it starts to look like things. And so I'm looking forward to progressing through on those stages. So sculpt molding right now, which takes several hours. And by several, I mean times a factor of 10, just to get it all covered. And then there's some management as you manipulate and manage the sculpt mold. So a lot of people don't know, but a project this big, when you put down sculpt mold, you're no matter where you put it, you're probably looking at 5 to 6 days of full cure time before it's like before you want to be doing anything else to that. So it's a process. Obviously, you can incrementally step and build around the table, so it doesn't all have to be happening at once. But it is a big process, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in videos if people are interested in knowing more about the properties of sculpt mold. Thank you, Striker, saying the sculpting is going great. It is going absolutely great. All the sculpting is done. Everything is fitted in. All the hobbit holes are in. And now we're to the stage where I'm just starting to put in actual features. And so setting little farmsteads and tree spots and, party tree and where the tents are going to go and all the great stuff. So looking forward to progressing along this one. It's been a slog. Very unique tile design, completely custom tiles, and then really trying to make them look both aesthetically pleasing and functional. Has been a bit of a challenge. Not really necessarily any hardships or pitfalls along the way, but just physically getting 16 tiles to all function and look good and be cohesive. Meanwhile, trying to hide as many seams as possible, even though there's a boatload of them. So um, I was talking to the customer on the weekend and talking about just how many individual pieces of foam were cut to make all of these layers was just incredible. Every tile itself had about 12 pieces to form the core, and that's like basically the box with the inside struts, and then all the pieces that get layered on. It is about it's about 15 inches from top corner to bottom level. Like that's the elevation change over the course of this. And if anyone knows the size of a hobbit in Lord of the Rings, once you put them on there, the scale really starts to become pretty impressive. So it's really neat. So big project, and I think you guys will like it when it's all finished. So that is what's going on there.
I'm curious how much that's going to weigh at the end of this.
So surprisingly, that's one of the unique parts about it. So the foam itself, it doesn't weigh a lot. So they're fairly lightweight in terms of like the size. Like looking at the size and picking up a tile, you think, oh, that's going to weigh a lot, but it's surprisingly light. The nice thing about them is the top levels are going to be where the most of the weight is, and that's kind of balancing the tile out. So it's not going to be like bottom weighted, and it's going to be fairly balanced. But because of the sculpt mold being sort of near the top of the tile, there's still a nice balance because the tiles themselves are kind of blocky and chunky, and then there'll be a few features on top. So there's an inherent value in having the tiles to be weighty because they're not like easily just moving around. You can't like bump a corner and then everything's flying away from each other. They have some ability to stick together. And then also the large surface area, there's actually a static factor that actually keeps the foam nicely together. They've all been drywall compounded around to the outside, all edges. to actually give them a bit more of an eggshell finish. So instead of having chunks and dents coming out of the foam, they have basically the equivalent of a drywall compound on the outside. Very, very thin, so that the weight's kept down. But at the same time, it's not damaging any of the foam structure. So keeping the corners sort of crisp and squared. So yeah, it's all engineering that's irrelevant to the gameplay later on. If somebody's going to come by and be like, cool grass, nice trees, and nobody cares about all the other stuff, but patrons care. So all right, speaking of caring, we don't know where Pally is, but we do care about him. He's somewhere in the streets, confirmed to be practicing his Ewok war cry in preparation. So that is the latest information I have for him. But on the topic of latest information, let's get into the news. All right, Graeme. Upcoming championships. Yes or no questions? Are you going to Nova?
I won't be at Nova, but there is another one that got announced recently that I hope to be at.
Okay, fair enough. I will also not be at Nova because it's the first week of school, and that's frowned upon. So, especially it's like literally the first week after 8 weeks off. So better not be asking for that one. So I will not be there, but this is what's going on at Nova. So it's the August 31st to September 3rd. All the Star Wars related games are going to be played there. World Championship qualifiers. So I'm not sure how many spots they'll have, but if it's similar to Lone Star, then maybe it's 4 in one flight. I don't quote me on that, but just check out the details. We also have the Golden State Games. Is that one for you, Graeme?
No. Okay. It's still on the East Coast.
no, there's planes. There's people can travel. There's space-time continuum and all that good stuff. This one's happening September 23rd to 24th, San Francisco. California also will not be going to this one. September is probably a no-go, but it looks like there will be again at least one championship qualifier, a spot up for grabs, maybe more. Don't quote me on that. You can get the details. September 23 to 24. And then this one already happened, but I had it in the queue, and I thought I'd leave it up there just to shout out that this occurred and looked to be a super fun event. Shout out to Yavin Base, David Endless, Zelenka covering off the weekend. Stream looked great. I watched every little bit of it and enjoyed my time working in studio, listening to the games. I'm actually watching them back because I listened to them mostly, and then now I'm watching them back. So matching up the words when I like, oh, I remember when they said this before. Oh, that's what actually happened. So I'm working my way back through. I think I'm on just going into game 3 here as I work my way back through. I did watch the final yesterday. It'd be yesterday. I watched day before, I guess. I watched the final and it looked to be a great game. And then I also watched game 3 on day 1, so I guess I'm technically going to be on game 4 when I resume watching. So Ryan says, unlike Shawn, Graeme can travel without being hassled. You know what?
I don't know. Small business might say otherwise.
Yeah, fair. That's fair. We'll see. At least I can travel still, and I'm traveling. I'm traveling in a week or two here to the East Coast. So staying in Canada though. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, shout out to Yavin. Shout out to all the players that did great. Austin was the winner, I believe, and played droids, which is cool. Cool to see droids on the final table. And yeah, droids rebels, I think was what we saw. So
I believe so. And I think he had the same list he had at ACO.
Yeah, I think
Saj and Cad Bane and B1s pretty much.
I don't know if he had a Saj in there. Did he have a Saj in that list? I thought he was running Magnas and Cad.
Yeah. Might have been all 3. I'm not sure. Curious. Oh no, Saj. Yeah. Oh, okay. So he dropped her for this one.
Yeah. I think it was just. I think. Yeah, Jake was there. He was watching. So. Yeah, Cad 3 Magnus. Oh, look at that. See, that was a guy. I was a guy watching this. I know what's going on. You confused me there.
To be fair, I hadn't gotten there yet.
Like, man, was a Saj in that game? Like, geez, talk about being irrelevant. I'd never even heard her name come up. But fair enough. No, it all seemed good and seemed to flow good. Very friendly play is what I saw. A lot of forgiving play from players, just like letting people back things up and cover things off. And I not that I would not expect that. I just noted that it was quite friendly. So. All right, so that'll end those. Before we click on to all the AMG announcements and get into that, what event were you talking about, Graeme, that was announced that you maybe
Um,
finding your way to?
Hopefully, I'll be going to PAX.
PAX Unplugged. Yeah, I figured you're going to say
Yeah.
that. And they just got announced as being a qualifier. Is that correct?
hmm Yeah.
Fantastic,
So,
fantastic. How many spaces?
they haven't announced it because assuming it's functioning the same way it has other years, it's a free tournament, and you just need the con badge.
Okay,
So then you
cool.
have to like sign up through Uplink, and that's just pretty much the way that they tracked them last year.
Nice, nice.
So I
Okay,
think it
well, fit.
was, I think it was maxed out at 64 last year, but we'll see.
Nice. Well, 64 is a great number. So I did hear on the stream somebody was talking about a tournament. I'm not sure when it is, but in France, 156 players. I think they
Oh yeah,
were talking about.
I,
Like, man, I
I
was
think
like,
it's
that.
like the France National Championship or something like
I
that.
mean,
But
that's excellent. I mean, yes, they have a large population, but I just love hearing these like 150 man tournaments. I think that's just fantastic. That's like just a lot
yeah,
of legion in one place, and makes me feel good
yeah.
about it. So
Europe's got some crazy tournaments.
they
There's
do.
like Poland regularly gets like 75 to like a single day tournament.
And I know a lot of Polish gamers. They're like the most serious gamers. They're like awesome people. Yeah, they're kind of like yeah. I like their approach to gaming. Like I said, I have quite a few Polish friends, not necessarily all playing Flames or sorry Legion, but playing other games. But yeah, their approach to gaming is top notch for sure, for sure. I don't like the Germans as well. So, all right. Well, let's get into a few things here, Graham. We got some reading to do, and then some analysis, and then obviously we'll get into this Tempest one. So we'll try to get through this in the next 20 minutes or 30 minutes or so. All right. So there was an announcement today, or I guess an article today, and effectively was a Q&A. And I mean, I appreciate, yeah, no problem, Shawn will be here. I do appreciate the transparency, willingness to answer all these questions. Some are fairly lengthy answers for sure. The questions are really maybe no rhyme or reason. Like there's not a necessarily overall theme to them. These are obviously maybe just some things that have been posed multiple times and information that we'd be interested in. So we're gonna go through them. Graeme will give you some analysis if he's got some, and you guys in chat for sure can give us your points. So um, first one was, when is Mini Extravaganza? It looks like we are excited to announce that Mini Extravaganza will take place on September 14th to 16th, so we don't have to wait long for that. We'll feature product updates, behind-the-scenes panels, painting streams for Marvel Crisis Protocol, Star Wars Shatterpoint, and Star Wars Legion. Yay, we're happy. We're going to be in there. We won't take any offense that we're listed last. That is fine. We are pleased to share that we will have mini announcement stream for MCP ahead of Gen Con on August 2nd at 9 a.m. Sad I won't be at Gen Con. Okay if I miss the update for the MCP. But it doesn't look like there's any announcements pre-Gen Con for any other games. What's the cadence for announcements? When will we know when you'll talk about things if you won't talk about future products? Announcements will always happen when and how they need to in order to support the games. Our plan is to have key updates twice a year alongside Adepticon in March and Mini Extravaganza in September. So in other words, mind your business. just kidding. They're basically just saying that, hey, we are going to have two planned announcements and other things will come when needed. That's how I read it. Graeme, any difference from your?
Yeah, pretty much the Gandalf approach. Rise precisely what he means to.
That's right. Never late, never early. Exactly when he means to. That's a great way to summarize that. I would also say that I am okay with, if as long as the two planned announcements, if you're going to tell me that's what's going to be I'm going to anticipate that those will be the big ones, and then everything else will be kind of a surprise, and I'm okay with that too. So twice a year, that doesn't seem that bad. I mean, other things happen less than twice a year, so and Adepticon, I think, makes sense, with Worlds. If Worlds remains there, nothing to suggest it won't, but you're there, you got a lot of players for multiple games. It's a big meeting, announce things there, and then September is a nice little sort of balance from March, and kind of leads you into the Christmas season maybe. So I would anticipate that maybe many of the September updates might be down the road, like in the December through January area. So trying to build you up through the winter. So I'm okay with that. The other piece seems overly vague, but that's fine. So I think that just basically says, like, don't expect us to only do things twice a year.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I mean, look at Tempest. That kind of came out of nowhere. We did hear about it at Adepticon, and then like nothing, and then hey, surprise, here it is. And now print and play it. So I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I guess they stuck with that, and they're probably still going to stick with that. So, all right, let's look at the next one here. Why have there been so many Star Wars Shatterpoint announcements and posts compared to other game lines? Quick Cole's notes: it's new, it's hot, it's something that they're doing. Makes sense. I mean, that's
It's their
kind of
release strategy.
yeah.
Like what they did in the first place with MCP. So
Yeah, and so it says it will never be exactly even when it comes to which games have spotlighted releases or announcements. Different games are at different places in their development, and you can't compare apples to apples in that way. This spring at Adepticon, we announced the pipeline for roughly the next 6 months in order to share our excitement and set our expectation of what's coming for our games. We are planning to build on this kind of communication in the future. While we can't always be specific about what things are coming down during panels, it should help guide your expectations regarding how many products are coming your way. There are still items that we have touched on at Adepticon that haven't been announced for pre-order, so you'll still have those to look forward to. In terms of Star Wars Shatterpoint, it's the new kid on the block. Just like we did with Marvel Crisis Protocol at release, it's important for us to release an increased cadence of Star Wars Shatterpoint products to create enough variety for players at the outset. Keep in mind, you don't know what's coming beyond what we've been able to tell you at Adepticon via social and or through our events. There may be still things you don't know about for other game lines coming. So, hot take in chat from Ryan that says Shatterpoint is killing Legion. Shatterpoint is not killing my Legion experience. I will say that. I can only say that from my perspective. But folks in chat, there's multiple people. If you want to chime in, if it's maybe it is in some areas impacting the number of Legion players. Not unlike maybe new X-wing varieties. Maybe I see Armadas still getting product on the shelves. So, I don't know I think there will always be diehards for all games. Nobody in our sort of circle has shifted over to Shatterpoint to the point where we're not playing Legion games, or they're like opting not to because they're playing other things. But what's going on in your local scene, Graeme? Is it a split? Is it a divide, or is it kind of a happy balance?
probably closer to a happy balance. If anything, it probably more so depends on your local store from what I've seen in my area, like depending on like what time they're open till what time people get off work. Because Legion game is what, twice as long as a Shatterpoint game on average.
I have not played Shatterpoint, but I think there's always going to be the appealing factor, right? Like when I shifted from Flames to X-Wing, one of the things I loved about X-Wing is that I could play so many more X-Wing games in a short period of time, like really, really quick. Quick setup, quick play. I loved that. I love that. But when Legion came out, it was the game that was my preferred style of game. The army, the 2.5 3 hour dedication to a time, that time frame is fine for me because I was used to that sort of gameplay. So I think people who are used to shorter games may sort of gravitate more towards Shatterpoint and maybe less to Legion. I don't know how many people are leaving Legion based on the length because they want to go play Shatterpoint because it's shorter. They're probably leaving, if they are leaving at all or splitting their time, probably based on other factors. I don't know if time alone will be the factor, um, but I think it was switched, whatever word you want to use. I think switch is a PC word. I don't know if people are like abandoning their games or anything like that, but yeah, I'm not sure that Shatterpoint is causing people not to play Legion. I mean, if we're having 64 man tournaments, person tournaments, seemingly every second weekend around the country, I still feel the numbers are pretty good. If we're having 150 man tournaments, and like I know in our province we're going to have 4 tournaments. We've never had 4 tournaments for Legion in any year up to this point that I can think about. So for us, I think it's increasing. So I haven't heard about any Shatterpoint events, so I would say that's probably, if anything, people are playing it on the side. The store we just went to play this last tournament a couple weekends ago was had a little demonstration setup of Shatterpoint core set, but with Legion there, people were very much interested in what was going on with the Legion event. So I think how, like you said, whatever's kind of dominant in the store or prominent in the store, I think that's going to have a big factor of what's getting driven in your local area. So,
I mean, honestly, the best part about Shatterpoint for me is the I can use the terrain for either game, so that
right.
helps me out. So
Some good comments in chat here. Jake saying Shatterpoint is a completely different game. They play so differently. It's also easier to play with my 8-year-old. So there's an inherent drive right there, right? Whatever pace of play, ease of play, maybe you're more akin to liking the models. Michael is saying, yeah, Shatterpoint is consuming Legion near me, but Shatterpoint is appropriately named as the end of Armada, my favorite game. So, maybe Legion's not the only one that's going to feel, the pressure of new games coming out, and maybe they're going to complement each other too. Because I looked at the Shatterpoint models and I looked at the Legion models as we were at the same store, and like, I don't know. I keep coming back to, man, they seem so similar in size. Why we just couldn't have had a second rule set? And maybe there's a world where I can use Legion models with Shatterpoint size bases and just try it out or whatever. But that's not in my future right now. But Striker saying less model count and hero versus hero are other things that people enjoy. I think there's probably a laundry list of 100 things that everyone can say about every game. I guess I just refuse to think that one game is killing my game because it was released parallel to it. So as long as the game's supported and there's new things coming out and units to look forward to, I'm going to be optimistic about Legion. So, and I'll tell you right now, I got Legion models for days. Pretty sure I could just carry on for a few more years and be perfectly satisfied with running some configuration of models I've never yet run. So, yeah.
I will. I will say about Jake though, it might be easier to play with your 8-year-old, but my stress level would be through the roof with how thin the lightsabers are.
Oh, that is one thing. I saw Maul's lightsaber at the demo, and I was like, wow, that would be 100%
Yep.
replaced with Rod immediately. So thin. I was not anticipating. Very cool. Like the models. To me, the bases seemed disproportionate to the models. That's just my own visual aspect of it. But
Some of
very,
them are.
very, yeah, very, very slender. Very, very slender. But the Boba Fett model to me, or maybe it was Django, I'm not sure which one I
Yeah,
was looking
Django.
at, but looked so close to Legion scale. Just so close. And I was just like, wow, it could be totally a usable model for sure. So SP is getting all the units that Legion may take a while to get. Oh, I agree, Michael. And that's the thing that I'm looking at Shatterpoint for right now. It's like, okay, what are you coming out with? What do I have to look forward to? And I'm not from the perspective of like, why don't we have that yet? I just think it's a wait and see. That the timeline will be, how far down the road is Django and Mace going to be for Legion? So, yeah,
That's me with Commandos.
yeah,
With
fair.
Republic Commandos. Yep.
Right. Yeah, I've heard some other people mentioning Commandos. So, all right, well, let's press on. We covered that pretty extensively. So, where's blank character? We'll never answer. So in my professional world, I try not to use the words never, ever, and always because those statements are like so hard to
Yeah.
maintain. But good on AMG if they're going to, but they will never answer wish list questions here or on social. Fair enough. We are unable to speak to specific future products because they are approved until they are approved and announced. So before they are approved and announced. Okay, but maybe never is like. I mean, like if we go back to the old FFG days, I know they probably had similar sort of like parameters, but like I don't know, things just came out. People like to share, so but that's fine. That's fine. If they can't, they can't. I won't be asking those anyways. Our epic ships, sorry about that, Graham. Our epic
There you
ships coming to X-Wing. You want to talk a little bit about this? We are focused on the
go.
core game at this time. I will just give you the one tidbit. When we were in the store walking around, I was looking at the epic ships, and I just said to a guy, I was like, is this one new? And he was like, yes. And then he just told me this blanketly, and I don't know if this is applicable, but he's like, don't buy any epic ships. There's no rules for them. And I was like,
Yeah.
what? What's this? So explain, what's the scoop?
Um, I'm pretty sure the last X-Wing release before they changed the rules from 2.0 to 2.5 was an epic ship. Was the Trident like the squid ship?
That's the one I was looking at because that's the one I
Yeah.
didn't recognize. Yeah.
So like it feels bad, but it's not just like epic ships. It's um there was a 2.0 like or like box where it was just a whole bunch of different game modes and that kind of stuff, and like um the most common one was like Aces High, where it's just everyone gets a single ship and it's just a death match. You're just going around. If you die, you respawn.
Okay.
Um, there's no rules for that anymore too, and that was kind of like one of the main things that people use to get people into the game.
I remember doing that in like early X-Wing, like first version X-Wing. You used to do the sort of dogfight with respawning. So,
Yeah.
um, okay, well, fair enough.
So it's weird.
I guess I guess the focus is just on the core game. I mean, one of the things you have to appreciate about this being written in text is that they're willing to provide an answer to the question. Whether you like the answer, whether it was the answer you're looking for, whether it's the answer that you, uh, you know, um, gives you any glimmer of hope, it doesn't matter. That's the answer. And so, you must be careful about questions that you ask because sometimes you don't like the answers. But at least they answered that one. So, when is the new website coming? Something we've all been asking for and waiting for, and there's been a plethora of reasons. And our hope, this is not a definitive, but is to launch in August. And I think like last August is when we thought it was going to be coming out. I believe the quote unquote, I
Something
think they
like
said
that.
August. That's fine. Obviously, some things have happened. Okay, fair enough. We pushed back the launch to ensure that Shatterpoint could be included in the launch. Okay, fair enough. Maybe whether that delayed them a year or not, or whether that's maybe the delay was a convenience to allow this to happen and this created a further delay. Whatever. We are as excited. We are excited as we have been hard at work behind the scenes to make sure that our community will have a great new resources. If the resource is awesome, once it's released, we'll forget all about how long it took.
Yep.
That's kind of the beauty of most things. You complain about a show until it starts, and when it starts, you forget about how long you waited for that to happen, or how long for something to come out. And so I anticipate is if it's good, if it's functional, if it's easy to find and navigate, then I think we'll be perfectly fine. So August is not far away. Now, of course, somebody will at 12:01 the
Oh
post
yeah.
will come out. Where's the website? It says August. So by definition, I think they have at least until the 31st, and it's still a hope at that point. So there's no definitive release date, but fair enough. Sometime in August, maybe. Um,
I look
oh,
forward to non-maliciously seeing that website crash because everyone's flooding to it.
fair.
Because I
So
mean, that's what happened when like the rules and stuff dropped. It just Legion crashed the AMG website because everyone
right.
wanted to see the core rulebook.
Yep,
So
fair. Well, hopefully it's robust and can anticipate the
yeah,
traffic. So, what's going on with Star Wars Legion Spec Ops? We are still incorporating the second round of feedback from the community. When the final version of the game mode is ready to launch, we'll make a formal announcement on social whenever they want. They've already told you that. So when it's ready, it'll come out. Um, I I'm indifferent. I don't care about Spec Ops, but so I'm fine. Take all the time you want. In fact, dedicate all
it's
that time to the website that I care about, and Spec Ops can come later. For I'm good
it's
with that. So
it's still so weird to me that they announced Spec Ops like a week after Shatterpoint got announced.
it's
So it's just like, okay, here we go.
yep.
It gets
But
here when it gets here. But
you know what? because I have little interest in it. Like it's not something that I'm like it. Like I, to me, it's whatever. When it comes out, it comes out. But that's like anything, right? I'm not interested in half of the stuff that's answered here. We're doing it for comprehensive nature. Although one Q&A is not in here. I don't care why there's no fall damage in Shatterpoint, and I thought that question was like so different than all the rest. I just did not include it. So, if you were looking for why there's no fall damage in Shatterpoint, then just go read the article. Everything else is covered here, though. Why is it so hard to set deadlines and stick to them once announced? On paper, this frustration makes a lot of sense. However, we set our release dates almost a full year in advance. They've told us that lots of times, and there's a lot of checkpoints across development, localization, marketing, factories, distribution, and customs. At any one element experiencing change can cause a delay later in the pipeline. I know all about this, so this makes a lot of sense. We will always work to make sure whenever possible, we stay ahead of messaging for you or jump in to provide clarity when we do experience delays. I think they've been fairly transparent about most things. They've also said that they'll give us information when they can, and we might not always get it. And so sometimes the frustration is when we get no information, we think that we're missing out on something. There just may not be information to share, or maybe there's information that can't be shared because one particular element. So, but I don't think this is the only company to experience delays. But whatever, they're trying to be as transparent as possible, so I can appreciate that too. Yeah. Michael says Spec Ops is Imperial Assault. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Deadline question just screams that AMG staff got extensions on assignments in high school. Okay, fair enough, Ryan. That's nothing like drawing great conclusions from that. So I'm gonna guess that all of these elements at one point or another can cause delays. We're maybe hearing some. Is it FedEx? Is it FedEx that's threatening?
Or FedEx and UPS or
Okay, both threatening
we're both
strikes.
having
So
issues.
fair enough. And if shipping delays happen, people are going to be blaming the wrong people for that. But when things take longer, it's never the person making the delivery's fault, but they always bear the brunt as well. So
There's always a chance another shipping crate could get washed off a boat.
that's you're not wrong there. You're not wrong. That's a great risk. So if you're not making changes yearly to all the games, then why do you make them when you do? At AMG, our philosophy is that change should happen only when they need to happen and not on some kind of regular schedule. It's that's definitely a Gandalf. I should have said that in a Gandalf voice. Much like how people only take an antibiotic when they have an illness that needs to be treated by an antibiotic. RADA points updates, rules updates are all ways to treat specific issues. I love analogies, and so I appreciate that. So, however, just like with medicine, there's numerous ways that issues can be approached and treated beyond just updating points or card erratas. For us, doing these things is a last resort, as it may address the problem, but it is the option that carries a significant amount of risk. It's important to remember that when we're working 2 or more years ahead, so now before they mentioned the kind of the release, they get sort of a year. Now I think they're talking more about the development here being 2 or more years ahead, and we've also heard this number as well. That work is always predicated on the foundation that of what currently exists, and most importantly, that 2 or more years ahead work is all at different stages of the production process. So making a change to something now could easily have a ripple effect that negatively impacts something that is currently being printed. I think we've definitely seen that, meaning we have no way of changing it before it hits the shelves without, you guessed it, more errata. And I think, part of that, and I'll get to the last paragraph, but part of that I think is, my question was like, hey, how come we didn't get the Tempest cards in the ATST box? Maybe that hindsight's 2020. If they were able to sort of line those up, maybe that happens. But I'm gonna guess that something was already too far down the pipeline for that to ever happen. So the more changes to printed games, the more difficult it becomes for players to have a smooth game experience. Not all players engage with the games at the same level. Some players may not even be aware that there are updated documents in general. That's true. Others might know that an update happened a year ago. Really, only a small percentage of most engaged players know at all times everything there is to know about the game, and even they can struggle to remember which update is when the tool is used too often. So I think overall I agree with a lot of that. I do also agree that because changes happen in different formats, paces, information pipelines, it does create some confusion. You, Graeme, have probably been at a table across from a player who was unaware of an update that you knew of, or vice versa. I've been there. Matter of fact, at the tournament, because I've been playing so much TTS with my deck for Remnant, I obviously hadn't had to put a command hand together. Well, I went to put a command hand together and wasn't really paying attention. And when I grabbed Covert Ops, I grabbed the oldest version of Covert Ops, and then at the tournament, I put it down and I was like, yeah. He's like, what's this one? I was like, just give suppression to anybody you issue an order to. And he's like reading it. He's like, that doesn't say that here. I was like, yeah, it's just one suppression for every. He's like, but it doesn't say anything about that there. I was like, yeah, that's what it does. And then I looked at it, I was like, that is definitely not what this card says. So that I pulled up the, I pulled it up and I was like, and he's like, oh, okay, cool. And I was like, whoa, that never even crossed my mind. Like I knew that you hadn't seen it. And I was under the assumption that all knew that it was changed. And I didn't even realize that the card text was old because it has been long since registered as something else in my brain. So, yeah. Happen at Worlds even, J Rod's saying here. So, yeah. I mean, it happens. So, so where do you land on this? Like in terms of, are you looking for regular changes? Are you cool with changes being made like at intervals that are, maybe non-congruent? Different changes, different times, different game systems. They don't have to be uniform in their application. And then, what kind of cadence are you looking for?
I think if I'm fine with them not doing regular updates like twice a year or whatever. I think maybe as a way to kind of like meet the people that are hoping for that, probably could do something like we're watching this, like an update of like we're paying attention kind of thing to what's going on.
Yep.
Um, because like we heard through back channels about or like about Blizzard Force at Worlds how they wanted to change it, but it was too close, and by the time everything got approved and whatnot, it would have been unfair to everyone involved, everyone that practiced against it, everyone that practiced with it. So,
Yeah.
so just saying something out there like we're looking at this, and like if like there's an event coming up or something like that, like Worlds, just saying like, hey, after this, it's going to be adjusted.
Yeah.
Just
I think too, like when things come up and they're brought, and I get that, it's maybe that becomes somebody's daily job kind of thing. But like, for example, when the ATST came out and it was misprinted with the range band for the Twin Light Blaster, I think it was, it would have
yep,
been great if somebody was like, hey, you know what? Oh no, this like somebody official who says like, oh hey, no, that was a oopsie on the image box, et cetera, et cetera. This is how it's going to be. Like they know what the product's going to be. They would get it in advance. And so, just to kind of stem that speculation that people like, that are running wild. Like I didn't crack open my box and look and see if there's any misprints in it, but I mean, and I think in fairness, there's been a few. So people anticipating and or being confused when they see something that's shown wrong, that might actually be in production wrong. I think that's valid. I think we've seen that. But it would be great if like even if you're not doing an errata or whatever, but if you just come out and be like, whoa, we know that this was shown as this, but it's actually this. No, we know that this said this, but it's actually this. Like just to kind of clean that stuff up, not necessarily having to go in an errata or change or things, making swooping changes. But I would appreciate when somebody, just stops the skies falling, sort of approach.
yeah.
But
I would love a product that was just depending on what the thing was. We could just get all the eroded cards that are out right now.
yeah, oh,
Like
like
an
an update pack. Now here's the
yeah,
thing. Here's the thing. Producing that would not be free because the cards cost money, print costs money, production costs money, packaging costs money, shipping costs money, all those things.
yeah,
Um, I think though that you land where it's like I or you might pick that up for whatever, $10. It's just a
yeah,
card pack or whatever. However, is the flip side of that that you have so many complaints about people saying that I got to give you 10 more bucks to fix mistakes that you've made. Like, I don't know if that's worth the headache on that side. Do you do a print and play option? Do you say, here's all the errata cards and print and play? Like, we want to make sure everything's correct, and here's a method to do it. Like, I'm just not sure where he likes, because they're not
I
gonna, you can't come out perfect in the scenario.
Yeah, I think there's probably just as many that would be upset about a print and play option as there would be about paying for a physical option.
Oh, people would complain if it was delivered to your door. There would be
Yes.
somebody who would complain. I no, I get that. I fully register
Yeah.
that for sure. I'm just saying, what is the best method to do this? Like, but it's somebody's time to do all that. But I think printing things or having them available in the appropriate print would be great, because it would clarify, and I get that there's people at different levels and all those things, but people coming into the game, it's at a certain point I kind of feel bad where it's like, oh, you got this, yeah, that's not the same, that's not the same, that's not the same, that's different, and you start to wonder if people would shy away from any of that stuff. But hopefully not. But on the flip side, if it said, hey, these things aren't right, but all you have to do is just print off this PDF document that's free, it's on the website, and here it is, and that fixes everything. And in fact, you're going to get a whole bunch of extra stuff that you don't already have. And I think maybe that might be a nice counterbalance. So, yeah. So they have the upgraded packs that don't change points, just text. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, just text.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. So,
I would love an updated mind trick because I made that mistake where my brain shut off and I just
mhm,
read the text that's on the card,
yep.
and there's no version of that card that's been updated.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
if there was some print and play option, but or $10 option, whatever it would be, um, maybe you wouldn't please everybody, and maybe people would gripe about it. But if you want it, you'd want it, and if you wanted to print and get it for free, then that might be an option for you too. So, I don't know. I just think it cleans up some of this stuff, and I totally get that. Not everybody plays at the highest level, and you know what? Some people just play with whatever card text is on there because that's all they know, and that's fine too, right? How many people play a rule wrong because they interpreted the rule as a certain way? Literally at the event I was at, two different games, two different rules came up, and it's like that's just the way they had played, and that's no different than this gaming system. That's been an age old story from any time I've started miniatures games till now, and I even learned new things along the way. So, Bobby Shipman says, for casual play level, the majority of point cards, etc., are acceptable. For example, if I sit down with my brother who plays, I'm probably going to be fine with what's printed on the cards. To my point, exactly. Bobby's a smart guy. That's exactly my point that I was saying, that there will be people who will just play them as written. So,
Mhm.
so I don't disagree that there's a small percentage that we're really probably speaking to here. I'm just saying maybe there's a quick way to please those folks. All right, let's get into we got a whole bunch more and Tempest to get to here.
Oh boy.
So, all right. This is why we take our initial development so seriously. Fixing balancing issues after the fact, whether with the errata or some points, is a massive undertaking that has far-reaching impacts, some of which we can adjust, but many simply can't. Without falling down the dangerous spiral of more errata and points updates. It's always our goal and our primary focus of our design and development team that the game rules are perfect when they leave for the printers, because we know that the errata and updates are a tool of last resort, and neither of them should be used as a tool to shake up the meta if we want the games we work on to be as healthy, as long lasting as possible. Now, this isn't to say that we don't make mistakes. No matter how much time we put into testing, we're still human, and just like all humans, we are still on the never-ending road of perfecting our craft. So when an issue does arise, we take it very seriously, no different than your doctor takes your illness seriously, back to the medical example here. But just like you, we don't want your doctor only responding to uh, what ails you to be amputation. Our response is first to dive in and do a significant amount of research and analysis. Sometimes a sniffle is just a sniffle, and it resolves itself after a week or so, in the same way that a lot of our initial perceived issues resolve themselves either as players innovate solutions or as new releases arrive that were designed specifically to shift and evolve the meta. So, I don't know, Graeme. I'm sure a
Yeah.
lot of people may have reactions to responses written like that. I mean, I think they're like I said, I get the analogies. There's going to be, I if we're going down the doctor analogy, there are people who will run to the doctor with the slightest of any ailment, and suddenly, and they will catastrophize it to need, immediate medical attention and all the medical attention. You being in the medical world, maybe perhaps you've come across some of these people. Um, and there will be people who will just let small things fester and let them build into big things too, and then there's people who will just take the wait and see approach, and like they said, a sniffle sometimes is just a sniffle that will go away. I think the explanation is pretty self-explanatory. I think it's too big of maybe a paragraph to unpack without having hurt feelings. People will land on whatever level of understanding they want to on this. So yeah, as we're reading in chat right now. All right, moving on. Yeah. Yeah, so I'll go on here. Comprehensive, analysis of other times the issue is more significant and doesn't resolve quickly, or may not resolve without some kind of development change. That's the ones we're talking about. At that point, we begin to pulling in data from wherever we can: big convention tournaments, social media discussions, community stream games, internal games. We're a community stream game. They might pull something from us. That's cool. Internal games, playtest games, and we begin to create our treatment plan. Okay, so what they're saying there is effectively they are monitoring things, but they're monitoring things when they don't resolve. So, our slightest, the release came out today. I have a gripe. They better change it. Well, one small blip on the complaint radar isn't going to probably create any sort of change at the top. But when there's data and Blizzard Force is winning every tournament and things like that, then obviously they are now analyzing that data and pulling that in. And maybe if a lot of people are saying the same thing, they're probably listening to that too. So, and you can there's a spectrum of that too. Like we can complain the loudest, but we try not to. So, but every step we have an account for how the treatment will affect the entire ecosystem. Remember that the ripple effect. We do, and this is why from the outside it might seem like we aren't doing anything at all, when in the actuality we are doing a lot of exploration, discussion, analysis to ensure that we are addressing the stated issues. We aren't creating three more issues than we are going to that are going to be even worse. So, I do agree with this statement, and this is something that I would say is largely a part of what happens, and I use this statement a lot. The assumption that nothing is happening because you don't physically see and or have the working knowledge of what's occurring should never be then summarized as nothing is happening. Seldom nothing is happening ever. Your knowledge of what's happening is where there's a gap. So I can say that I probably know almost nothing about what's going on behind the scenes. We only know what we either hear, see, or read. But the assumption should never be that nothing is occurring. And I think they're saying that you know don't make that assumption, because that's not the case. And I think that's fairly fair. And probably in your line of work and every line of work, um, I mean, I don't know how many times you've ever been on a drive. I always say that you're at a drive through. My wife's pretty notorious for this. We'll wait at a drive through and they don't come to the speaker to take your order right away. And so the assumption is like, they must be doing nothing in there right now. Like they're just literally waiting purposefully not to ask me what I want. And that's not the case. And it's not even a fair assumption to make. And even if that is, I shouldn't probably jump to that conclusion first. So, um, but maybe that's just my interpretation of that. So thoughts on that?
I mean, my go-to right now is probably looking at. You can argue whether or not they did enough with Dark Troopers, but that was a fairly quick turnaround. From them getting released to any change whatsoever being made to them, whether it was the errata or the points changes. But like, yeah, they definitely pay attention. So,
I,
and the rate is not terrible, honestly. It's just it's like anything. You just like you're saying, it's just information that you don't have.
Well, and I think there's a certain, like, you can only, and I think they stated in there specifically, you can only play test so much. Your play
Yeah.
test group is only so big. You're only going to have so many reps, so many games, so many variations, so many interactions with the unit. You put it out into the world of Legion. How many weeks, sorry, how many games after like 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks of release do you have? Infinitely more than you likely had in playtesting, and so things will come out. And maybe the reaction of the dark troopers themselves, in the playtesting, probably specifically focused on dark troopers. What you don't know is what's the reaction to, what meta shift does that have, what overreaction does that that ripple effect have in the larger world of region in Legion. So I think those are things that are very tough to account for, and maybe that's what the response plan is. Oh, hey, this got released, like, this went out into the world and caused a huge problem. The world of Legion needs to react. We didn't, it's not like we didn't have something like a couple years ago that sort of simulated a large global reaction to something that started fairly small. So I don't think that's unlike this in much smaller case, but that's kind of what I akin this to. So I'm just sort of reading chats here. So all right, I'm gonna,
Yeah.
oops, that's not what I meant to do. All right, I'm gonna click on the next
I
one because I
agree,
think
Justice.
that's says the same. What did Justice say down here?
Oh,
Just
he's
roll by.
still hoping they figure out the data on Obi-Wan and give him some updates.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, let's move on to the last couple questions here. So, why don't you make more game streams for all the games on your roster? Well, I'm without reading the response, which I already read before, but I already know this, and I'm just going to say I can appreciate this, and I hope that I hope that AMG also appreciates all the work that people do to help with this, like to not just us, but lots of people who put in the time to sort of help get that out there. So game streams take a long time to prep. Yes, they do. So does this show, and so does Friday Night Fights. It's about 5 hours a week of work just prepping our shows, not counting the actual airtime that we're on. From lists, giving folks time to paint, from just making sure that our featured players are comfortable with what they want to be on stream. Absolutely, I agree with all of that. We have a lot of folks who love painting and playing, but not all of them want to be on camera. It's also true of players that we have. Ultimately, we also have respect for the fact that there are only so many hours in the day, and choices sometimes whether to make the content or to make the product. And it's delicate balance. I can appreciate all of that, and I'm glad that there's lots of people out there who are taking on some of this advertisement and analysis and speaking about it and gameplay. There's so many great folks doing like battle reports and live streaming and all that stuff, and I think appreciation has to go to all of them as well. And they're saying right there that it's a dedication of, sure, it's a time and it's a balance. Why are the guidelines the way they are on the moderated Facebook pages? I don't know specifically about. I haven't run into this, but there's Ryan in chat who probably is intimately familiar with most moderator rules and or ban rules for web pages, including Facebook and
I'd
Discord.
say he didn't get the chance to find them out.
Fair, fair. We are privileged to work with some of the most exciting intellectual properties in the world. I don't disagree. While we make games that are featured, the exciting characters and abilities from these IPs, we don't own them. As stewards and our partners of IP, we are obligated to remove any content that infringes from lawful owners. Fair enough. Additionally, our rules are designed to ensure that the community around our game is safe and welcoming and creates an environment that reflects the values of our studio and our partners. I don't think that's any different than any other Facebook page out there. So Ryan says moderators are stupid, and that's why he gets banned. So he makes my point for me. Why don't you make inserts with assembly instructions? I'm not going to read into this big one here. Do you have a problem with how the assembly instructions are? I know people do. I don't read the instructions if they come with an insert. I'll be perfectly honest. And if I need to find them, I will. And it's not a big gripe for me, but go ahead. What do you got on this?
So I have one thing, and it's not that they're not included anymore because I get it. Their answer makes sense. It's specifically a Shatterpoint issue. They have a separate document on their website that just lists a unit and the base size it goes with. why that's not in that unit's instructions is beyond me. It just drives me.
Gotcha. So you're saying there's just the small sliver of information that you are providing elsewhere could easily be included. Like
Yeah,
that seems to me like it could be printed on the box. Even includes
yeah.
X base size. Fair enough. Fair enough. I did not know that. So, um, but yeah. So they're talking about the short answer. I'll read it because we did it. The short answer to this question comes back to how the production timelines from the product work. That our prior experience with how these timelines interact and what it takes to create the most accurate and useful assembly instructions. When we used to put the printed assembly guides in the product, the unfortunate truth was that those instructions were less than perfect. The reason for this typically comes down to the fact that the production timelines for plastic and print overlap, meaning that the printed materials components, i.e., the assembly guides, were due before we actually had the plastic frames in hand. This meant that internally we never had the plastic parts in hand with which to inform how we created the assembly guide. The result of that was often our assembly guides built off our general experience with miniature assembly, not real experience with the exact miniature in the guide. While we can build the functional assembly guide using prior experience, too often we ended up with a situation where the best way to build a miniature actually required the steps to be slightly different order than simply looking at the parts in a digital sculpting program would suggest. I'm sure that we've all had the moments that we realize that the cape needs to go on before the head, but after the arms. Yes. Short answer, yes. After realizing that there was no way we could solve the timeline issue outside of simply delaying the product by 8 months, that's a ridiculous amount of time, to a year, so the plastic would become completely done before the printed components were due. We decided that it was best for us, both of us, if the players would simply move to a digital instruction only. We were ready to already having to point people to the digital versions over the print versions that we were making. I agree with that. This meant that we were spending precious time internally doing the instructions twice, and worst of all, doing so knowing that we could not guarantee the level of accuracy in the printed versions that met our acceptability standards and led to the smoothest of the hobbyist experience because the layout of the order of the steps is the most efficient way possible. I don't disagree with any of that, and that's information for me that I wouldn't have known. So going back to the other thing that, why are they doing this and why the change? We might not have all the intricate background knowledge. We have it now. This was the rationale. This is why they made that choice. This is where they're at now, and this is the reason for it. So, I mean, Michael's saying I would rather print instructions over having to print and play unit command cards. Fair. I also don't love print and play command cards, but if it's the balance between not having them and that's a way that I can get them, I'll take that. I like the physicality of the cards. I'm indifferent about the physicality of the printed instructions. And so, I'm classic. You can't please me, and I guess in those two realms. So, but again, the instructions aren't important to me. The cards are. I know that there's an easy step to printing them. For some people, that's super easy. For me, that's extra steps. I'd rather have the cards. Some people love alt art cards, and I could care less about alt arts too. So, we're very difficult to please us people. So, but I'm okay with that. Some of the original MCP models are also different from the ones that were prototyped for art, so they can also change instructions. Yeah, fair enough. No, I didn't know that, but thank you for sharing. Go ahead,
One
Graeme.
thing they need to fix, though,
All right, what do they got to
because I was
fix?
just double checking,
Yep.
is someone needs to find the file from FFG for the Republic ATRT and put it
Okay.
on AMG's website.
Okay, gotcha. That's a missing instruction.
Well, it shows the parts
Okay.
as like them all laid out but not connected at all until the final product. And that's the same thing they copy and pasted into the 501st box instructions.
Okay, so small aside, this is precisely why my ATRT is on a flight stand with two raptor legs kicking forward and jumping in the air because I didn't have instructions. Otherwise, I thought that's how it went. So I'm gonna blame you. I'm gonna blame the lack of instructions. So yes, totally. Like for me, I like the hobby aspect, and I don't want to have instructions tell me how I have to put something together. It's most of them seem intuitive enough. There might be a few things that you might reference, but for me, I want to put it together how I want to put it together. For other people, though, box art in instructions are what they follow. step by step by step by step. And if they follow step by step and they land in a frustration point because they can't, like I said, put the cape on because they put the arms on already, I can see how people would get frustrated with that. And so whatever method makes it clearer for people, if they want to follow a clear method, I think that's the route they should go for sure. So um, I don't IKEA directions. No thanks. I just need to know the tools and make sure I got enough screws. I'm good. I'm good past that. So yeah, like if I bought a bed and it looks like a lawnmower when I'm done, that's a problem. But if I bought a bed, I'm pretty sure I know what a bed looks like, so I can follow that. So yeah, yep. I like print and play cards for models we already have. It breathes new life into the game at a steady pace. It wouldn't be difficult to put out a card pack twice a year. Pally was late to join the party, but we already suggested that, Pally, and I'm glad that you're in line with what we're thinking. So here's a question that was answered very specifically. What's up with the organized play in Australia? So we recognize that there was a bottleneck where information was getting caught up and not passed to the right people. Our exclusive agreement with Let's Play Games is in a very early stages. We're always working to improve communications as we work with new partners. Thank you for your feedback and patience as we work with some of the gaps and sought solutions. The communication pipeline has largely cleared, and we expect you to successfully request all of your info through Let's Play Games. There you go. Hopefully that helps out. And why is there no fall damage in Shatterpoint? You'll have to go read the article because I did not include that one. So, okay.
Shame
All in
Brian
all,
couldn't be here for this one.
fair. He could have helped us out. So, all in all, Graeme, just Cole's notes, bookend the whole thing for us because that was lengthy to get through, but I wanted to get through it because it was a lot of information. And that just came out of the blue today. I got on my Twitter feed and I was already copying and pasting into show notes within 1 minute of the Twitter post. I happened to be aligned, and then you posted a few minutes later, and I'm like, I'm already on this. So that was great, great timing. So, but what do you think about that transparency? That hey, we're going to answer these questions we've been asked. Overall,
I mean, overall, I'll never say no to them posting something like this.
mm-hmm.
I can appreciate it. I mean, at least we got mentioned in it.
Yep. I mean,
there's
I
there's
I
one
would
game that didn't get mentioned whatsoever.
fair. But I would say that that sort of post and that sort of transmission kind of goes to alleviate that, like they aren't doing anything sort of mentality, right? Like I've asked this question, or why isn't anybody giving me an answer, or why isn't anybody telling me about this thing? Well, they answered a whole bunch of stuff. I'm sure their queue of questions is much more lengthy than what they responded to, but all of that took time for somebody to respond to too,
Mm-hmm.
and that could turn into somebody's full-time job. And as they've pointed out, we have to find the balance of time. Are we going to spend time answering questions that people want to know the answers to, or are we going to spend time on the production, on the development, on the getting things out there, or are we going to spend all this time answering gripes? And I think they spent some time answering some things that people might need to know and want to know, and then hopefully back to production. So on the topic of production and spending time, they did produce a battle report. I see that they have repurposed and reused several of the items that I made in 2019, which is great. So I didn't get a chance to watch the Twitch feed. I went there today via the link, but I think maybe Twitch puts stuff up for a little bit and then it's down and then it goes back up. Is that how that sort of works? Like when they have a live stream, I don't know if it immediately goes up or if they have to set a setting on that, but I clicked on it the first day it came out. I saw some of the gameplay, and now all I can find is just a few clips of it. So somebody wants to help me out in terms of where I can watch the full thing. I'd like to go back and actually watch this because I didn't get a chance to see it when it came out. So Striker saying that Twitch is dumb for VOD. So hot take. So maybe it's not just me. I just wanted to watch it. But anyway, shout out to them because again, as they pointed out, this stuff is not easy to do and does take time. So I am happy that they're doing the live streams and gameplay. And I would say that they're like upping the sort of quality of the tables too. Like in terms of like they're starting to look, in my opinion, more and more like a Legion table that you might have played on. Before, I felt they were always very sparse and sort of didn't replicate sort of conditions that I might run into on the table. But I think they're starting to get there, and hopefully that continues because that table looks cool. And I'm not sure how the game went, but I'm sure it went awesome. So
It's nice to see something besides the desert buildings. I
Um,
think it's like all the battle reports at first were just the like 4 or 5 buildings on the desert table.
oh yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, that's what I mean. They're really starting to. They got like a plethora of tables now, building up some terrain and really making it thematic. And I like all that. So, yeah. And yeah, Striker. I never thought about checking the YouTube channel. Maybe it is up on there. I went via the Twitch feed. So there we have it.
Some in like a week or 2, they put it on
Okay,
YouTube.
fair enough. Yeah. Okay, so let's speaking of shout outs and people doing things, I want to just give a quick mention to Gamers Grass. They're always super helpful and supportive of me in the studio. I get care packages throughout the year all the time. So if you see me on Facebook liking their posts or talking about their new product, it's because it's really actually good product. They just put out a bunch of new items. I'm in 2 boxes here. I'm aware of that, just FYI. Um, they just put out a bunch of new items, and so I was speaking to my wife today. She's away, and she was asking about packages that arrived, and I've had this package sitting on top of a new air fryer that she also ordered, and I thought it was her medication that came, and so. She said, "What did we get there?" And I was like, "Oh, that's your air fryer, and that's the medication." Then I looked at it. I was like, "Jacinto, hmm, that's not your medication. That's actually from Gamers Grass. So it sat there for a week. And so I cracked it open just before the show. And this is the latest care package that I got. And if you guys are, I'll just highlight this real quickly. But if you, and I'm going to show you the bases that I've done. But if you are trying to like step up your mini game and like haven't like necessarily dedicated a whole bunch of hours to elevating your basing game, grass tufts are like the accelerator for that. So if you want to check it out, the nice thing is these guys even do it one better. So they make different tuff packs. These are the tiny alien tufts. Like you get like a gazillion in here. By the way, if you don't like to deal with finicky things like B1 heads, you will not like these because they are exceptionally small. I really like these though because scale wise they're fabulous. So that's the tiny tufts. They have like purple ones, purple ones, more alien tufts here. They've done this really cool. They call it Alien Frost, but if you are kind of doing like a Star Wars planet that's got blue or ice world, any ice effects at all, I think this would be fantastic. This is actually one of the ones I complimented when I saw the release. Alien Blood, so a very very dark red. This is toxic green too, so if you're doing a really sort of bright green world, that would work. But the cool thing is if you're not sure about complementary colors, which I think is a really big part of basing, as opposed to just doing a single base, they actually sell um, complementary packs. So they do this for like all their like deserts and winter, and so you can buy a pack that's complementary, and one pack realistically, if you're doing a whole unit, 6-7 models, there's more than enough to do a unit with one of these. So it's really really a convenient thing that they do. They don't charge you like an extra arm and a leg for that. It's just you get a little bit less of one color, and because you get a complementary color, so really really cool. So check that out. And then in addition, they've been releasing these basing bits. And so this one that they just released here is kind of like alien sort of tentacles and alien bits, some pods and spores and things like that. This piece right at the top, Graham, I was thinking that looks a lot like that pit that you were making, just a miniature version thereof. So
Oh, yeah.
and then the other one that they released, this might be good for like MCP or any sci-fi stuff, but it's another basing pack with just like garbage cans, crates, some grates, some piping, some vents, and things like that. So these are also like really cool kits. Not so great for Legion because they're kind of like almost the size of a Legion base, but really really cool items. So, anyways, I wanted to give a shout out to them because they're awesome, but. I never know when these care packages are coming. They just literally show up, and so every time something new comes out, they send me this. So why I'm saying this is what I end up doing with a lot of this stuff is I don't use everything that they send. I have 74 packs for the Hobbit table. No word of a lie. 74 packs of tufts just for the Hobbit table alone. Those ones I'll use. These ones I'll probably experiment, do some tests on, but then the rest of them I just do as giveaways. So FYI, They give to me, I give back to you. But in the end, they're really the ones to thank. So go check them out. And I wanted to give a shout out to them. So let's talk a little bit about, before we get into Tempest here, Graeme. I wanted to show you a couple things that I've done in the hobby front. Why don't you, do you have your, do you have those models
Yeah,
handy that you printed, Graeme?
yeah, yeah. So
Let me throw you up on the big screen here. You can kind of show some stuff here. Hold on. Boom, there's Graeme.
hey, uh, just kind of like a little planter thing. It's gonna go along for a dig of a table. Um, Slowly working on a giant version of like a Yoda hut. It's definitely not Yoda scale, but hey, it'll work better.
For sure.
Um, and then this is going to be the what you were referencing, the centerpiece for my Umbara table.
Yeah,
So
that's very, very cool. I want to see if I can, let me grab that. Let me see if I can grab that little pit out of here.
yeah, I
It's,
may need to actually grab those alien basing things. Those are like definitely work.
oh, I'm showing it to the camera. I'm not even on here. Um, Where's Shawn? There's Shawn right there. Yeah, so it's a little tentacle
Oh
with a
yeah,
little bit of a, yeah, just really, 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 really sharp, cool thing. So they're not all on bases. Some pieces are just kind of like standalone stuff, but there's little spore pods and little alien-esque things. So little looks like carapaces and little egg sacs and some tied in with vents too. So very, 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 very cool stuff. So go check that out. These are all the brand new stuff too. This is the latest releases. So go check that out. And they have a whole plethora of stuff, and obviously different size from 6 mil down to 2 mil. The tiny tufts are very, very small. So I like the tiny tufts almost the best. They just take a lot to put out. But I'm going to show you the reason that I wanted to. This was unrelated. I already had this other stuff loaded up, but it was convenient that that package came. But have a look at this stuff. This is the things that I've been working on lately for my Tempest and Remnant Battle Force. So I wanted to show you. Ryan's here, and so he'll really appreciate. Ryan, you also have to appreciate that I'm actually the best eWeb player in this stream right now. Just saying. They won me my Worlds invite. But yeah, so if you look on here, I actually used 5 different Gamers Grass tufts in these bases, and so there's just a variation of colors, including the tiny tufts that they're in there. Mixed in. This is the dry the dry grasses. I used 2 different levels. I used some of the dense versions and then some of the shrubs as well. And so you can see right here at the front of the eWeb, the toe of the ATST. I have some of the dark green tiny tufts, and they're my kind of complementary color to put that splash of life back in there to the otherwise yellow tones. So and then my ATSD bases are close up here. And again, that the other color is a little bit washed out yellow, but this is more the natural tones here. So you can see the dense tufts in between the cactuses here and the toes. And then there is sort of a drier grass ahead of that, and then the tiny tufts at the toes there again. And then there's another, that's a footprint there because I have an ATSD.
nice.
It's got 1 foot up. So there's a footprint stomped in there. So do you scatter the
The
tiny
wood
tufts
chips
or
go nice.
what's that? Sorry.
Like those bark chips you have in there look really nice too. They fit in
Oh,
really nicely.
okay. So yeah, so there's actually 2 different types in here. So if I go back here, the ones that you see here in the forefront, this is actually snakewood, and so
Okay.
you can buy this in like the reptile section. And so what I do with this is I actually cut them in half. Because they're typically more nugget shape, and so if you cut them in half, they lay a little flatter, so they look like they're kind of coming out of the ground. And then the sticks of wood here are actually pine bark nuggets, and so I just sort of cut them into longer strips, and again, same sort of thing, shave them down so they lay a little flatter. So, um, question in here. So Striker saying he might get some of those frost ones for a new project. They're like I said, they're my favorite one in the new line. The blue really really looks sharp. Pally's asking, do you scatter the tiny tufts or bunch them up together? I'll tell you what I do. I love the rule of 3. And so typically what I'll do, Pally, is if I'm trying to go for a color. You can see here on this picture, it's a little blurry because it's focused on the mid ground there. But what I'll do is I'll put if I want a splash of color, I'll put two or three of the tiny tufts together, and then I'll use one of the complementary colors just to sort of transition. So I really like them on the fringe where I'm sort of transitioning from taller grass into some more open areas. And so that's where I'll often put my tiny tufts as a transitional element. So, but I love the rule of 3. So that's kind of my thing, is whether I'm going for the yellow to green or green to yellow, I'll usually use a 2-to-1 ratio and just follow that rule of 3. So, and again, you can kind of see that here in the upper toe. And they're really great if you need to like jam them in between something where a big tuft won't work. They really create a nice little effect there. So, so how many tiny tufts do you estimate on your eWeb base? Oh, that's also a great question. Let me just jump back there real quick. So what I do, I will tell you right now, there's probably 7. And so I break the rule of 3 because I also like to use odd numbers. But what I do, and this is one of the things that would be my suggestion, is I take my product. And so let me just say, for example, I will turn these off here. So I can come back and talk to you. So if I had an item like this, what I'll do is I'll say, okay, how many bases do I need to do at this? And let's just say I was doing 10 bases or whatever. So I'll figure out okay, 2 of these and 1 of these will be nice, and then whatever other element I'm doing. And I ration out all of my tufts so that I have a very uniform application of tufts. Now, the nice thing about the product is that they come all different sizes. And so you will have different tufts that will fit seemingly better around a foot, a stick, a rock, etc. But I ration out my materials so they use very similar amount per base so that I get uniformity within that. And so when I'm doing my bases, I was typically doing 5 of the dry tufts, 3 of the dense, 7 of the tiny tufts, 1 rock, 2 cactuses, and if it was a smaller base, 1 cactus. And that was my ratio that I created throughout, so that I would have uniformity, but also be consistent. And also be a little bit more sporadic with my application. So the tuft doesn't always go on the front side next to the left foot. It's not like that. I would just basically lay it out whatever looked best, but keeping it the same. So, yeah. Looks like I'm scrapping my bases clean and starting. Fair enough. And I think somebody requested to do a tutorial on that basing scheme, so I'm going to do one up. I'm just going to use a blank base and do that up. So I'll kind of maybe go more comprehensive into that, Pally, so you can watch that on the Patreon. So, okay, all that's out of the way. Don't forget to sub the Patreon if you want all that content that's there. And then let's get into Tempest, because long show, good crowd hanging out here. So. If you don't know this segment, it's effectively called Making It Better. It's looking at lists, units that are in a list that we've either run, want to run, or thinking about running. And then we're going to talk about it in the chat live format and sort of break it down, the rationale that goes into the making of it, the thought process, and then obviously your suggestions. So I did see, Striker, that you started using cork, which is fantastic. I noted that when you posted that up. Cork is a great substrate to work with. I like it because you can actually layer over your bases and actually carve into it, which is cool. So you can create some negative space with it as well. So yeah, cork is easy to come by. It's your friend for sure. So I recommend thicker cork than thin stuff. Just my recommendation for sure. So Tempest Force, Graeme's been out for, I guess 2 weeks now ish. Is that right?
About that, yeah.
I think last Tuesday would have been a week, and Thursday before that it came out. So a week and a half, actually, I think is when it came out, because it was right before I went to that tournament. It came out, and the tournament was on the Saturday. So, so Tempest Force, obviously a print and play options, got some special rules. We're going to get into that. Got a really good command hand, I would say, above average command hand for sure. And I have 8 games now logged with Tempest, so not an expert by any means, but 8 games since it's been out Thursday seems, average number of games to get in. I'm not sure how much Legion you're playing a week, but I'm playing about like 2 games a day. So lately it's seemed that way, but I've enjoyed it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to break down some of the the units that are in it, not every unit, some of the configurations, and then just talking a little bit about a list we've seen, a list that has been suggested to me, and a list that I've been playing. So let's get into that. So if you're not familiar with the Battle Force, effectively all you need to know is all the vehicles get Scout 2. Every mission, doesn't even matter. Even in rollout, it's ridiculous. So, however, here's what I want to say though. I think that Scout 2 is a trap in some situations. And I think that I've seen more people, including matchups where I've gone like Tempest on Tempest, where they're using the Scout 2 and I'm using it to my straight advantage that I know they're going to use Scout 2. So I would say Scout 2 is an option. It's not the default deployment strategy, in my opinion, because I think you can overextend. And I'm running the bike version, not the triple ATST version. And the bike version, I think, is far more susceptible to being out of position if you're scouting too far.
Oh, yeah.
Scouting behind your ATST so they can't be seen, that's a strategy. And if that only causes them to go out speed 1, who cares? Because making them go speed 2 and getting them blown off the table, which happened to me in my first game with Tempest, luckily I was able to come back with my ATSTs. But I thought I was doing really good and scouting into a great position and moving up, and I lost every single one of them by Act 1, Turn 2. I won the game, but that was the absolute worst way to play that list, and I learned a valuable lesson game 1. In my opinion. The other thing you need to know is suppression is not your friend. It never is. And if you don't have comms relays on your units, it's really not your friend in most missions. And so I'm not saying that you have to have it. It's easier if you do. I'm not saying you need to take a commander because I have not played a commander version yet of Tempest, but I think that there is merits there. But if you're not playing it and you're playing field commander version, then comms relays or comms upgrades, are your friend. So Shawn Death saying, I agree with that assessment on Scout 2. The game my opponent didn't scout was harder for me than my opponent that went full W key recently. And that's been my experience too, to be fully honest. So, and then the army build requirements / rank requirements, commander, special forces, core, support, and heavy. There's very limited choices in there. So heavy, you have 2, ATST and ATST named. Support, you have bikes. Core, you have stormtroopers. Special forces, you have scouts. And commander, you have a commander. And so there it is for you. So very, very limited choices there. So very restrictive, and yet as we're going to get into this, I think there's still a lot of variety to be had within this Battle Force. So okay, let's talk a little bit about Major Marquand here. Graeme, you can give me your overall analysis of it. We'll talk about him in the sense that we've seen him in a lot of Tempest lists and likely will. So what do you think about him?
I think he's pretty good.
Okay, you've heard it here first. Moving on.
Yeah, no, it's. I think direct vehicle easily makes that 190 totally worth it. I mean, it's 2 more points than a fully loaded ATST, and
Questionable, depending on what you what you
well,
define
I
as
just mean
fully
like you do
loaded.
all 3 heavy
Yeah,
weapons
gotcha.
and like a completely loaded, every slot's filled. It's only 2 more points.
Yeah.
With LTA. So it's like, yeah, why how is there not value there? But yeah, no, I mean, it's nice that he comes stock with all those 3. The direct is just it's nice.
It's good. I will say right now that Scout 2 need not apply generally to the major, because if he's leading the way, you're probably going to be found wanting, especially if he gets focused down, because I feel like most want to go in on him. I make every effort to make everything in my army appear more dangerous than the major. I will be perfectly honest. It's like, because I need him to stay alive. And like you said, with the onboard weapons, he doesn't need an ATST to get range 4 shots. Doesn't need to be halfway across the table. Like you can put some work in before you get there. And even at range 3 or controlling the range band to get to range 3, 9 dice is okay, and generally enough to get you over cover. So that blast is great when opportunity strikes, but I don't think you need to go racing across the table to do that. So, especially if it opens up opportunity to get into your weak points. And like I said, brace for impact. I have played multiple games now where I have run into at least 3 or more copies of impact grenades. And I'm not saying that people are teching against Tempest or armor, but I'm quite certain that they didn't just suddenly discover the grenade slot, or had points to spend. So that's been a challenge, and because of that, I'm fine to stay at range 4 and shoot. So
Yeah.
190 points.
Fair.
The beauty is, I will upgrade this guy the same way you will, in the fact that he has no upgrade slots. So if you're bringing him, you're
Yep.
bringing him. He's a known quantity in the Tempest Force list. Field Commander is great. It doesn't give you anything other than that, so you're not removing suppression. But we'll talk a little bit about the battle deck and maybe how you're mitigating that in a particular build. And we're going to focus mostly on the ATST builds, although we will talk a little bit about Scout Troopers. So let's have a look at this list. This is the one that was featured on Friday Night Fights. So if you want to see how this one plays in its entirety, Jace piloted this. 8 activation, 800 points. He ran for the no bid. I'll talk a little bit about my opinions on the bid perspective, but he went the no bid, and so obviously he was red. I went blue, and I think that is maybe a pitfall a little bit of Tempest, because I don't think it loves every mission, or if it doesn't love the mission, it's got to do a lot of work, and you can be kind of susceptible to particular victory condition that that doesn't have a lot of hands. He has quite a few in this one, but watch the game, you'll see what I mean. So he's running Marquand, and he's running, or Farquaad, whoever you want to call him. People like to call him, Farquaad. It's Marquand, but
Yep.
that's fine. He ran 2 ATSTs to complement there, 180 points. So budget ATSTs, if you will. With the elite armor pilot, he ran the twin blaster and then the linked targeting ray. So I don't think he ran any grenade launchers on his. So, but he didn't really care because he was just putting in work with these. 9 dice feels really good, and he was hitting hard with them in the game. Always having the aim or the extra aim in many cases from orders issued feels really good. Double aiming ATSTs. They're just dangerous. He also ran double astromech stormtroopers, so no other upgrades on them. So obviously suppression susceptible, but an extra 4 health in a 33 armor pool feels pretty good. 37 armor is a lot to get through.
Gosh.
You'll see how many I took down in the game, and I think the extra astromechs are great. They're also great for pulling off inadvertent damage tokens that may cripple your ATSD. So having a weapon or maybe a mobility issue that you need to have that ATSD fully mobile, those are great to pull them off if you're willing to wait till they get to the damage threshold. Then he ran 3 scouts, no comms upgrades on any of them, and no heavies and no additional upgrades of any kind. So obviously, he had 5 units of hands, 8 units total. So I did have him out activated in that. And 8 activations feels about where Tempest is going to be most of the times. 8, 9 activations. That's about all you're going to get. And that should be expected with 3 armor pieces on the table. So we're going to get into looking at the 2 ATST variants here in a second, but any thoughts, Graeme, on this list overall? Or chat, of course.
Uh, think, yeah, it's.
Like,
I
does
mean, for
anything
me,
about
it's
the
really
scouts
those
scare you, or?
astromechs.
Okay, gotcha.
Uh, the scouts annoy me more than anything else. I mean, because they could be sneaky and just come up behind the ATSTs as well, and then just peekaboo out and throw 8 black
Yeah, I
in
meant,
your face.
sorry, when I say about the scouts, I meant maybe from the standpoint of, like, is there any like hesitancy here in this like build for like the scouts not being able to really remove suppression, or
Uh,
like end of the round kind of thing, or stormtroopers being courage 1 and not taking off suppression, or
maybe. may be some. I guess there is a little bit more now, just because of the panic changes.
Yeah, like a
Um,
panic unit not getting a free action to me is big.
yeah. Um, but yeah, and then scoring at the end also, and but I think more often than not, they're probably fine because if they get down to just one action, if they can get behind something and then not be seen again.
Yeah, Strucker saying you don't need to remove suppression when you're just wailing doom. I mean, fair point in many scenarios until it does matter is what I'll say.
Yeah. Hmm.
I would say that there is a world where maybe it does matter. So I love the double heal and the triple ATST. I'll wait till I get to the version, a couple of the other versions, but I think there's and Jace didn't really run into it in his, but I can imagine that there might be some tables, some deployments, and some situations where three ATSTs becomes a little congestive, like on the table,
Yep.
because they can actually block each other in terms of the lines of sight. There may be a world where people are actually manipulating the lines of the ATSTs to cause some grievances for shots. And three certainly becomes in some scenarios it might become a little like I said congested for movement and line of sight concerns. That's something I have concern with, but I mean, that wouldn't be any different than flying triple flutters, and and you're,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Well, you probably know exactly what I mean with the double lat triple flutter. There's probably
Yeah.
worlds where it's like, that's kind of in my way now, and having to navigate and sort of pre-plan and plan around that. So, um, yep. But that's why you have Scout. The Scout 2. I think that just gives you more room to go forward, but I don't necessarily know if it alleviates the congestion. So, um, but yeah, that's just
Maybe
that.
from like more of a flanking option, just so you can have them coming out like of an awkward angle, but they can still catch up, kind of. I guess.
Yes. Now, granted, this is maybe where a bid comes into play, so that you will have more predetermined deployment zones versus being red and susceptible to other people is kind of
Yeah.
what I'm getting at. So like you can imagine a disarray deployment where you were wanting to put three ATSTs all in the same box. That's, yes you can move out, but you're also fairly clustered, and there is a world where your movement out can susceptibly open you up to flanking behind. So yeah, it's just one of the reservations I have around the triple ATSTs. So let's have a look at the two variants. So um, this is not the variant that Jace was running here, but this is certainly something that's out there in the wilds. It's a little bit cheaper than the one he had by 2 points. And this is the Armor Pilot Link Targeting Rate, which I think those are almost staples on the ATSDs. Um,
Yep.
I think that surge conversion is so important when you're throwing those 6 dice, and when you have the aim on board. I think it just makes it a really efficient pool. And then the link targeting array, specifically when you're running one, is almost a no-brainer because of that direct vehicle. So procking
Yep.
an aim every single turn for 5 points seems like a steal. Now the ATST the plain Jane one, the 155 version, with the grenade launcher, means that you have a six dice pool at range 4, a 1 to 4 I should say, and then you have a 8 dice pool at range 2. Do you think that there's a world where you're going to be found wanting in that range 3 band, Graeme, or do you think you can mitigate that with the movement of the ATST?
Uh, if nothing else, or if nothing else, but for cover, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I think outside of the current cover rules, probably you don't mind so much, but with how it is now, you're probably not going to feel great at range 3.
Yeah, like
Um,
I find more times than not, I'm running my plain ATST in to be my range 2 gun. and I'm using Marquand to like sit at the range 3 bubble, so I can pump 9 dice in from there, be behind him, have this the up close and personal one. And if you're not focusing on him, then you're just allowing the 8 dice pool to go in and blast every single time with multiple
Yeah.
aims. And if I need to vacate, like if I'm worried about the encroachment of impact grenade units, etc., a quick reverse out um, helps you to, like, if you stay just at that 2 and you sort of walk in incrementally. I think a reverse out with this size base puts you out of that impact threat range, and you can still back up and fire a decent pool or shoot him back up. So
It's almost
I
like there's command cards that can do that.
there is command cards that can do that. So yeah, so the point of this particular slide deck here is just having a look at whether you need to run the range 3 gun, and then in which case there is really no point to bring it to a closer range band than that. You don't benefit anything additional. But also speaking about like the scenarios where you will need to advance based on whatever the objective is, and if you are closing in, I want to close in with inherent value added to my distance, and not just being more proximal to get killed faster. So for me, I like this version versus the Twin Light Blaster version. Here's the Twin Light Blaster version with the grenade launcher, and some people have also done this at 188 points. It's probably not bad value either. It opens up a variety for you as well. It's just a matter of whether you have the points to run that extra 10 points. So you're either running at 178, you're running it at 180, or you're running it at 188 if you're just talking about interchanging those weapons. So for me though, there's like maybe one turn where like this becomes the optimal version, and then it's either least optimal or I can optimize it by going closer. So for me, the extra 10 points I can spend on comms upgrades for my scouts. That's where I'm kind of spending my points, and trying to run more of a bid. But at 188, I don't think it's a terrible ATSD. You also have 2 that play at the same band as well, or 3 in some cases.
Yeah, I think if you're only doing 2, I think there's definitely a world where that makes the most sense, especially if you're going to a uh, like a long tournament, just for more
Right.
flexibility, not knowing what
Yep.
you're gonna run into anyways.
Right. Yep. No, for sure. And I've run this version. It's just I've been trying to trim points. So let's have a look at a slightly different version. This is a version that Nick put me onto. Very close to what I was running, um, with an obvious and clear, subtle change from mine, but a very distinctly different build from what Jace was running. So Nick's also pushing a 13-point bid on this, which I like. So he's running Ameriquand or Farquad, whatever, 190 points. Nothing different there. He is running the ATST version, the very first one that we talked about, with the grenade launcher and LTA and the Elite at 178. He's running a single storm at with Repairbot. He's running 2 scouts with E transponders and the saboteurs. So again, you're throwing 10 dice at range 2, and you're adding the bombs in here. You're also adding the transponders for that suppression mitigation, which is great. Even when you get to a situation where maybe you're starting a turn with 4, you can use that transponder to pull off that suppression and know that you will not be panicked for a given round. So that's clutch. And I find more often than not the transponders are used for suppression mitigation as much as they are used for the aim. In my experience with them, and then running 3 speeder bikes. So at first, it looks like you're dropping in the firepower, but I want to point out that they're going to add you another 18 dice, and really you're giving up 6 to add 18. So there's a net increase here offensively. Um, and if we talk about at range 3, um, then that math works. If we're talking about range 4, but if you want to consider the compulsory move would make up that distance, then your range 3 punch is very very crazy at with this given list. If we're talking about from the impact category, going back to Jace's list, Jace was packing impact 4 per ATSD for a total of impact 12. This list here is actually packing impact 14, I believe. So you'll have 4 with Marquand, 3 with the ATST 7, and then 6, 13, impact 13 with the given units. So you're not even suffering in that. And in fact, I actually have faced using this list and another list slightly different than this against the triple ATST version. And my first experience against it, I actually took it down and won the ATST battle and finished with a full health ATST -2, I should say, 2 health missing, and 2 bike units. And I did that by controlling the range band, again, with the congestion factor coming in where the ATSTs were kind of cutting each other off a little bit. So I really like this list a lot. I just wanted to talk to you briefly about what do you think about the ACT number? And then how valuable do you think that those saboteurs are in there when you're just running the 2 with the single heal bot?
I mean, the single heal bot is it's still 2 more health. What is that now? 24 health total potentially.
Correct. Yep.
Um, at least for the ATSTs, you're definitely making up for it in uh, impact, but then also you've got more flexibility on objectives. Um, you're less congested in general, but then you also have the Empire Sabs are suppressive, right? That's what their
Correct. Yep.
specialty is.
Yep. Suppressive.
If they can just like key positions, or even if you somehow with a 13-point bid ended up on your opponent's deck and intercept, uh, just lay out a few mines while the ATSTs move up, and then go make sure you claim yours at the
Yeah.
end
I'm
there. And
Scout 3 in behind ATSTs that have scouted 2. If you are talking about at taking early center position, even if it is to just move them up to then slingshot them off into a safe position, back up your ATSTs and just have them chuck bombs in front. To be honest, the ATSTs, it is a surge crit bomb, but the ATSTs aren't really fearful of a 2 dice rolling into crit every single time. Like you have to, that's not an inherent fear. It's not an impact bomb. So
yeah,
if you later have to reclaim the center position, not to mention you have bikes. So if you need to go to the center and you want to keep your bikes safe, or if you want to keep your KP safe at the back and use your bikes to go threaten theirs, then who cares about the middle? You could just populate bombs on there because there is some inherent risk when you move in. If you have sabs ready to blow and you blow multiple bombs and you're touching a KP but suddenly find yourself with 4 suppression, you're touching a KP but are no longer scoring said KP. So that's a problem too. So I really like this version a lot. Um, it's a little bit less on the heal, it's a little bit less on the act count, but I think there is still a world where, as long as you can play smartly with your bikes, I think you'll be okay. There is a world as well where if you're out activated by 2-3 activations, um, being aggressive with your bikes may be an issue for you, because I think they'll be one of the first things to go, only because probably likely your scouts are harder to hit and hidden. Your stormtroopers probably just standing behind an ATST and can't be seen. But your bikes are probably going to be one of your punchy units in addition to your ATSTs. But if they have armor killing, they're probably going to try to bring down an ATST. If they have gun pools, they're going to try to focus down your bikes. And so you do have to have some protection around that in the activation count, and maybe that comes from just getting an activation advantage from killing things. So
mm,
13-point bids
yeah,
aggressive.
yep,
Yeah, I
yeah,
like this. I like this one a lot. Um,
yeah.
let's have a look at the 3 scout variants, and then we'll jump into the list that I've been playing, and then we'll talk a little bit about BattleTech because we're
All right,
pressing the 2 hour mark, which is great. This has been a great episode. I've been having a lot of fun actually
yeah.
chatting, so this time's been flying here. But so let's talk about these scouts. This is effectively the bare bones scout, and bare bones meaning Jace ran the bare bones. So nothing. But the transponder, so 48 points being the bare bones one. This is a 52 pointer, just the transponders. I like this version. If I'm going to run nothing, I think I'm still running this because I think you need the hands in your army to do things when you need them to do things. And I think this is the best way to ensure that happens. You got to run two. You got to run two of them. It's discount. 52 points, though, Graeme, for 8 dice. Don't feel that bad.
No.
And I mean,
That
if
and low
you're
profile. And
exactly if you're heavy cover, you're super heavy cover, and like if you're just waiting for guys to come in, dodge standby. Your standby is going to trigger at the range that it's going to trigger. Yeah, you might be shot off, but you're likely going to trigger that, or they're staying at a range. And so a heavy cover shot in these guys feels pretty good. They can tank. Yes, they're white dice saves or white surging saves, but when you're sitting in heavy cover with a dodge, feels real good, real good. So if you're gonna take nothing else, this might be a version. Now you get into the expensive versions because the scouts just jump up. They don't have a lot that they can take, and when they take something, it's expensive. So this is the version that Nick was running, and I've actually tried out the list, and I felt it was pretty good. But jump up to 78 points, and again, I think you run the transponder here. But there it is. You know that sonic charge blast suppressive red black is very quality.
yes.
You know, like just makes droid saboteurs just look shameful. But yeah, the suppressive keyword is like with that red dice there and surge, you're just giving 2 suppression out
Yep.
every time. And the you know, if you fail to, you're giving out 1. You know what I mean? Like it's going off and it's doing things. So I like it. 2 is good. They just need to stay alive because the moment you put these guys on the table, you've increased tenfold the target that's on these scouts, and maybe that's fine. Maybe you use that as an exploitive thing. If you like Marquand, ATST, triple bike. Oh no, you know what? I actually got to get these scouts off the table. Well, while you're trying to shoot the heavy cover unit with dodges, sitting in you know the best terrain I can possibly find for them. Maybe all the rest of my stuff's doing a lot of work, and maybe that does make up the activation disadvantage. So, um, I like it. I like the scouts, and I like the saboteur variant. I also think it adds a bit of an X factor in terms of you know, opponents maybe not necessarily knowing how to properly deal with that. So, um, I played a game yesterday, a disarray breakthrough, and before my scouts sort of left their hidey holes, I just threw a bunch of bombs into the disarray deployment that my opponent needed to go to, and then I just kept them back there. And so basically the entire game, my opponent sat out there and didn't kill them until turn 6, but was shooting at them the entire game to get them out of there, and that just delayed him from doing all the things that he needed to. And I walked everything across the table and was able to kill all the other stuff there. But it was enough of a deterrent, even though the scouts weren't doing a lot of work over there other than just putting bombs out. So, yeah, I don't mind
I
that
think
variant.
if you're running 3 or more scouts in this list, I think there's a conversation for which heavy to take. But if you're only doing the 2,
Mm-hmm.
I think the Savs are just a better choice over the sniper.
Funny you should mention that. Here's the sniper variant right here. So it's a 2 point more variant than that. So what? Continue your thought. Go down that trend.
I mean, just if it's only 2, then it's easier to move around. I mean, the ATSDs are blocking line of sight for them to get shot at, but then they can also be used so that they don't have to be worried about getting sniped either. Um, so there's too few angles for them to cover, so there's more potential for quote unquote wasted turns with only 2 snipers.
Right.
But the Sabs, like you were saying, like if it's something like breakthrough, it's never a wasted turn essentially.
There's such a good strategy, I think, with deploying 2 ATSTs in tandem, walking them up and keeping them slightly farther apart than touching base. Because the moment you leave a line through there, you can just throw your bombs through their legs. Like, I mean between the bases, not through the legs,
Yeah.
because you have to be able to see it. But as long as you can see it, and you can throw them out to the sides, you can have your leader out to the side, throwing the bomb off that, and keep everybody else in heavy cover behind them. But when you put those bombs out in front of the ATSTs, you can just keep walking forward and putting them there. You can split off your scouts and you can just back up your ATSTs and you create this little trail. The same thing when you're walking to deployment zones for breakthrough. The entire time you're walking to the other deployment zone, you could be chucking bombs either before, in front, or behind you. Leaving those dangerous breadcrumbs for your opponent to follow. I don't think there's ever wasted the scout throwing a bomb out. It's not like a wasted shot. It's out there for an opportunistic use and doesn't have to just go off and do nothing the turn that you throw it out. And I think that's the inherent value for the saboteur. It's like having a standby with whenever you, like, out of activation, out of sequence, basically. Anytime it's like a no-go zone. It's like, all right, if you're going to walk in there, you're going to take 2 dice and 2 suppression. Are you prepared to do that? Or maybe 4, or maybe 6 or 8 or 10. And the moment that and it's like that cascading effect, right? Where it's like, if I don't start into these units fast enough or soon enough or get on these guys, they're going to do so much damage without actually doing anything that I'm not going to be able to make up for that as an opponent. And meanwhile, I got 2 big tanks blasting me and bikes zooming around. So I do like the range and the threat of the sniper. Certainly, Pierce is an inherent keyword that has great value, but I'm not sure that it does the work of the SAB. And I think that one of the strange things that I find about the SAB, the sniper and scout variant, is that they play at entirely different range bands. So if I keep them back to keep them safe, I'm probably losing what my scouts could do overall. The net ceiling goes down by keeping them back. If I'm moving them forward, then maybe I'm putting my sniper, my 80-point unit at a risk prematurely, maybe in some cases. But I feel like if I'm adding a saboteur to my scout and I'm moving forward and taking advantage of the range band, the threat, the tools that I've brought, I feel like I'm in the appropriate range band and usage stage for them. And I think you're pretty safe to move them up if you need to. So I think if you're running the sniper versions, you're running an entirely different list, and I think you're taking them in greater volume than 1s and 2s. To really, I think you're running them. That's where you're running like the 4, 5, 6 version, in my opinion. So, yeah. But yeah, and I haven't run this variant, to be perfectly honest. So I think we've all seen the value of snipers. 6 feels good, but their stock's gone down a little bit. So
yeah, one thing I haven't thought about, because people don't bring SABs too often. Can you still trigger a bomb if the unit is panicked? I have no idea. I don't know if
That's a
someone in
great
chat
question.
knows.
I'm not 100% sure. I think you just have to have the keyword on the table. I don't know if it's not an action or anything. It's not I don't know if
Maybe it's just like fire support.
But I don't know if it's a free action. I don't know what it's actually labeled. Great question. I'm sure somebody can find it before we're done. So, okay, well, let's slide over, finish this conversation off, because I got to get through, rip through the command hand. If you're okay, if you got some time still, Graeme, or are we keeping you from anything?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. All right, so this is the version that I have been running. With Marquand, ATST, running it the same way with the grenade. I think the grenade is the sweet spot for that. There's a 1 paste error. There should be 2 astromechs in my list, so I think I just missed a keyword there. So double storm, double astromech, triple bike, and double scout with the transponder. So different from Jace's in the fact that I'm up an activation and running 3 bikes versus the ATSE, but still taking the same number of heal. Different from Nick's in the sense that I'm running 1 more activation in the form of 1 more storm heal. Now I don't have saboteurs in here, so I'm a little less risky with my scouts, and I'm trying to keep a balance of hands on the table, but I'm also trying to keep a balance of hands that I have some suppression mitigation control with. I'm trying to win the straight up impact fight. I'm trying to exploit everything I can with bikes. Bikes just flying behind ATSTs and then just popping over top of ATSTs is incredible. As long as you keep them slightly angled so that you're 4-inch, as long as you keep them slightly angled so that you don't like run into like congestion issues. You can generally clear over them and clear the space if you want your ATST to go completely forward. That's important to keep in mind. But this has been my variant. It's one less point on the bid, but the 9 activations. So this is kind of where I have been at. I'm not opposed to the SAB version, but I do kind of like the 9 activations, just being perfectly honest, and I like the balance of having the extra 2 heal as well. So, and here's why. When you look at the heal, you will often immediately think the only usage is to heal ATSTs. I will tell you right now that most often in the game, I'm actually trying to heal bikes with this, because if a bike gets shot before it goes, and I can have the opportunity to double its firepower before it goes based on a heal, that's huge. Healing a bike and bringing it back and cohering it in a position that provides the bikes then with heavy cover, increasing their cover over this plain speeder cover, or potentially putting it out of line of sight entirely to mitigate the wounds back, or potential shots back, is also inherently amazing. And so having 4 points of heal and a little bit more room to spread it out amongst the units, in the case that I have multiple units, so they can kind of follow different units up the table, I have found has added value. I think if you have a single point of heal, you're probably dedicating it to keep Marquand on the table, and your opponent might know that. It's a little bit more telegraphed. If you have no heal, then I think Marquand is exceptionally vulnerable to getting focused down. And if they're able to do it soon enough in the round, the game, you may lose some of your command cards. So for me, I still feel like the double heal is where I want to be. But obviously the double heal comes at the sacrifice that I can't be running any saboteurs. So thoughts on this?
Um, yeah, no, that's. I mean, I've done similar things with like the Wookiees, where it's like they killed one and then you just bring it back, and now you've increased the firepower back to what it was before. It's so I definitely get the value there. Um, yeah, and it's the grenade launcher on the other one too. So yeah, no, it's
Correct. Yep.
yeah, yeah, I don't see any issue, and it definitely makes it more forgiving with the bikes. They, it's worth losing that 1 point a bid in order to gain the heals and the flexibility that brings.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm leveraging the the value of the bikes uh a little, like, more than having the bombs available in this
mhm,
particular build. Um I'm just the flexibility, the speed, the interaction with objectives, and I think we'll press on here and get to the command cards and
yeah,
objectives. But I think you'll see with what I'm taking, there's a lot of inherent value in me having bikes on the table, and not a lot of value I'm trying to gain from saboteurs particularly. So
yeah.
we'll let's get in the command cards, and maybe it'll contextualize the conversation a bit more. I will tell you right now, we're not going to spend a lot of time on the command cards. I take all of the command cards from the print and play, with the exception I do not take the 2 trooper disengage card, because pin down in a 5 vehicle list is too dang good.
Yep.
It's incredible. Um, Not to overlook the fact that you can split fire off your ATSTs and put multiple tokens back. And please do not forget, bikes have a holdout blaster as well as their fixed front gun, so you can use one shooting forward and one shooting in any direction to also do that. CIS players, look out! The turn that you have 10 AI units, I look forward to that day. Uh, I do really think that pin down is a no brainer inclusion in the list. Other than that, all the command cards are great. Um,
Yep.
the 1 pip gunner infantry, it's better than ambush, but it's not a lot. In fact, sometimes I don't really like the slowing down of Marquand, so I'll often actually lead sometimes, often. with this one, mostly because I'm trying to capitalize on the suppressive weapons. So if I'm able to use the scout, if I feel comfortable with it, I'll get him in a position where I have the range 3 gun and the range 4 gun both trained on 2 units. I don't so much care about the move. In fact, I'll probably negotiate back a little bit just to keep the extreme of 3, gain the free aim, and then double tap with suppressive weapons, and then do that off the hop so I can maybe mitigate actions back early from my opponent trying to go with something earlier, or forcing them to go with something earlier than they would have otherwise gone with because I've put multiple suppression on them. So that's the only one that I'm a little bit like, I feel like it's a turn one card that I'm not trying to capitalize priority. I'm just trying to get it out of the way because I feel there's inherent value in the other cards later on. So I have definitely opened with pin down though in many games, and that has caught people off guard significantly. So don't overestimate the use of pin down as an early card, and don't get caught in the trap. I went against the triple ATSD, and I actually did that right away. Went with Marquand, off that, double tap the ATSTs, card back, or token back, and then he was fishing in the bag for that amongst all the rest of his units. So there's great value in that in the matchup. So, any disagreement on that?
No, I mean, I've had terrible times coming up against Pin Down, so I understand how good that card is.
It's good. It's good. It's
as,
good.
as a Yoda player,
Yeah, fair
it doesn't
enough.
feel good on Luminous Beings.
Yeah, it takes fire supports off the table as well, which is potentials for fire support, I should say. So here's my objective deck. This is again based on the ones that I'm taking. This is not what the other guys are taking. And so keep in mind that I'm speaking mostly about the double ATSD triple bike variant. So I'm taking payload, breakthrough, key positions, and bombing run. I think for obvious reasons, bombing run's great with triple bikes, especially with the option of scouting your ATSTs forward and then sliding your bikes with the bombs right in behind them immediately to gain that cover. Obviously, you can't do the scout and have the bomb. Don't fall into that trap if you're a new Tempest player. That doesn't work. Breakthrough, I think the hulking masses getting across the table are great. ATSTs can score fairly easily, and if they get there early, they're one of the few units I think that can get there early and just set up shop. They don't have to do a late game run, but the bikes are certainly great for that. Payload I like for many reasons. I know that payload is very susceptible to table. I don't think necessarily you have to focus on scoring your payload, but I think with vehicles and the fact that you can have larger bases, and ATSTs can block the path of the cart itself, is great. So I think you are looking at much more of maybe a 0-0 payload game where you're leveraging MOV victories. And if you can press to get to 1 point with your payload card, I think you're good with that. But I think you have every tool in the book to stop payloads, and I think you have great bases to cover both yours and theirs, so you can push yours and count for scoring against theirs. And I think you can maintain pretty good position with the ATSTs in payloads. So I do like that one here. Obviously susceptible to a table, so I might cancel away from it if I don't like what I'm stacked up on the table against. But if it comes to be, I think I play for the 0-0 MOV victory. And then KP for obvious reasons. Bikes are great at going to just back touch a KP and make a huge threat and a huge push. Don't forget the reinforcements Tempest keyword can also be great if you, especially in that saboteur variant. Dropping a scout in the backside with a bomb and just throwing bombs on their KP for the whole game is also a strategy that you can use. So there's all reasons that I take those. So any objectives in there, Graeme, that you would inherently just toss out you don't like?
Um, I don't know which I dislike more, bombing run or payload to go up against, because it's
Yeah, I mean, if you're saying, that's good, that's a great, so viewers at home don't hear that as like Graeme hates this. Just, yeah, probably thinks that
like,
they're not good matchups.
I think I would rather play payload over bombing run, but for the same reason that I'm knowing that nothing's going anywhere and I'm just going for an MOV against that list.
Yep.
I think if I think if you think you're going to score payload against a Tempest list, you're lying to yourself, probably.
I think it might be like if you are stacked up against somebody who can kill armor and like payload's not a great mission because they're probably also fine to I'm not pushing my card anywhere and I'm just going to kill your armor units and then you'll be so down on MOV there's no way to come back. That being said, I like this better than having to use my hands because everything in my list scores in KP. Everything in my list pushes a cart. Everything in my list can score a breakthrough point, and everything in my list can carry a bomb, at least initially.
Yeah.
So that's why I want to play objectives that I'm in. I don't want to play anything that I'm out of. I don't want to play intercept because, 5 of my units don't score. I don't want to play box grab when there's 3 I got to get and I only have 4 sets of hands. So that's kind of my choice there. So
Yeah.
deployments are as follows. Battle lines, because I like to have my bikes have the option of being spread out. Rollout for the obvious reasons that if you want to take advantage of that Scout 2, this is your opportunity. If you have not seen what rollout plus Scout 2 looks like, let's just say it's gross. You might as well take the board and make it skirmish size because that's about what it's going to be by the time they finish deploying. Hemmed in for obvious reasons, especially with payload in my deck, because oftentimes red on payload is just a really bad day for where you got to push, and fairly good for blue. And then disarray, again, I like disarray for a variety of reasons. It's usually a pretty safe breakthrough. If you want to make it that, you can just basically hulk your ATSTs up the side of the table and run everything along the edge. It's also great for bombing run for the same reasons. And with Scout 2, if you do need to pin somebody in the corner or they deploy and give you an opportunity to get an act early because they have to, it's a great way to get an act and be up on MOV right away. And if you can play keep away for the rest of the game, there you have an opportunity there as well. So
Yeah, I think for what I normally like to play, I think my go-to against you would probably actually be rollout. Is what I would like to play because hemmed in probably gives you too much flexibility to move away. Whereas rollout kind of just because it's short edge to short edge, everything's just much more consolidated, like you were saying with like battle lines. The flexibility to spread out offers
yep.
so much. Um,
I think what people also have
because
to understand about hemmed in is that you can deploy on the corner edge of the like let's just say the leftmost corner or rightmost corner based on where and go farthest away from your opponent and actually just use the scout movement to just do like a hard 2 and actually just walk it out but face it back inside. So you're moving out to the left but keeping your guns pointed to the right. You can also hook all of your bikes around the back edge. You could scout out to the corner. Like you can literally put yourself in the corner and be as far away from red deployment as possible, as opposed to maybe red's going to set up where they think, all right, all the guns are here and I'm facing this. I'm going to run at you with my impact grenades, my melee units, and then suddenly you're like range 6 from them to start. And it's like, I didn't anticipate that at all. And Scout 2 allows you to do that. Scout 2 does not have to make you go forward. In fact, it can allow you to go quite laterally and then still get your guns all facing the right direction. It's really quite good. Yep. And doing that on a bombing run again, you don't have to go straight across the table. You're way too close with bikes triple moving to drop bombs off to have to inherently risk them. So I like hemmed in a lot. Force users are going to love hemmed in because they can close the distance, but that's one of the ways to mitigate that distance a little bit by just redeploying your entire army. By the way, in Nick's version of his eight activations, he has a seven with Scout. In my version with 9 activations, I have 7 with Scout as well. So 7 scouting units. Of Scout 3. Well, it's Scout 2 or more, but let's be honest, Scout 2 on a bike is a Scout 3 for a trooper, and Scout 2 on an ATST is just ridiculous. So there's that. So All right, last up, we got this is a great episode. So long, but so good. I'm liking it.
Yeah.
Good chat. Conditions. This is the only category where there probably, for me, I think there is. I mean, there's options in the other ones, but like this is the one I care about the least. So I took everything that was like vanilla bombs because 3 of my bikes aren't going to set them off, and I just want to be as disruptive as possible. Plus, with the Saboteur variant, Minefield just feels real gross. Um, Supply drop is like one of the ones that I don't love. The only reason I have it in there is for really cheap grabs for potentially getting more arc welders and back to capsules. I don't think many of the other things really benefit, but I mean, field scanners don't feel bad on scouts. Marksmen. None of the supply drops really hurt the unit. It's just sometimes I don't like giving my opponent opportunity to grab supply boxes. Hostile environment. The reason I would do that is with the comms relays, I'm gonna be able to um, pull off some suppression. But the fact that you have Mark One who gets a suppressive weapon, multiple suppressive weapons in a turn, and the fact that you can double tap and potentially running it with the Saboteur variant have suppressive weapons, I think hostile becomes just something your opponent probably moves away from. Clear conditions because you don't want to go limited, and minefield for the reasons that I mentioned. So,
Why no War Weary?
so
Just curious about that one.
So War Weary I've had in my deck before, but it makes it so that my 2 heal variant has to stay next to Markwind and can't necessarily jut out for the bike help. And because I'm not necessarily always running them next to him, although many of the cards benefit from the speed 1, it's the late game War Weary distance that I get a little bit scared about. So because it potentially could hurt me, I'm trying not to have it in my deck because I'm also pressing for the bids. So yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, I did have it in there initially. I just replaced it for supply drop. So
I figure probably you're doing next list War Weary might be better because you only have one unit where Mark One
totally
matters.
100%. Absolutely do not disagree there at all. Yeah, War Weary would be fine. Yeah, for sure. And with Jace's version, definitely cannot run War Weary because he had no comms relays, no ability to pull it off. So it becomes a little bit more dangerous. So, well, there we have it. Okay, we've got to the end. Maybe we'll skip call center because we're at 227 and we've said a lot. But we'll fully reserve. Everyone can call in next week and tell us all the things that we're burning. And if you want to rip them in chat real quick, if there's anything that was pressing that you wanted to that you were holding on this long, great crowd and great engagement the whole night. Oh, and I greatly appreciate that. Let us know. Let me know if there's anything in the deck, unit wise changes, things that you would suggest that I try and work into my list. So because I'm glad to keep play testing. So I got 30 games in a Remnant before I switched over. So I had 26 games before I went to the tournament and played my 4. Yeah, no problem, Michael. Thanks for hanging out with us the whole time. So then I said after 30 games I would switch over and obviously try out Tempest. So okay, Ryan. I'm sure that if you do a quick Google search, you will find all the Shatterpoint content you need. So I bought some grass during the stream. that's that's awesome. I think that's wicked. Shawn, what kinds did you get? So I'm dying to know now. So I did see earlier you were admiring one of those. So Graeme, I must ask you too. Did you switch orientations or did you just move that cabinet in a different spacing?
We've reorganized this room, so
Gotcha.
it pretty
So
much all rotated.
Gotcha. So it was easier to do that than just rotate your screen, I guess. So
Yeah.
depending on the state, all grass is legal. That is fairly accurate. But we're already sponsored by Gamers Grass, so they'll probably appreciate any grass conversation that we're having because it's all relevant to them. So, yeah, we're speaking of the tuft varieties, so of the hobby varieties. So Yeah, they have really really cool stuff. This is the cool thing is they always send out these like little, and I'll always throw them in the Patreon thing. So if you've ever got any letters from Patreon, but they always throw out these like real cool vignettes. So that's the lime green grass that I was talking about. That is it's just really vibrant. So it's labeled as the alien line, but it doesn't have to be just used for alien worlds. So that's really really cool, and that's the scatter bits by the way too. So very very cool. So
Yeah. I might need to get some of those laser cut plants.
oh my goodness, have I let me 1 sec. Entertain the masses here.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if you guys ever looked at those things, but they're. I've seen some people use them. They don't look too difficult to figure out, but they got some nice color pops,
So in
different
addition to
different
the
textures.
in addition to the 70 packs of tufts, we have all of these cut and ready for the Hobbit project. So these are all the laser cut plants. And so yeah, so if you have not seen these are insanely detailed. Insanely detailed. Let me just hold up a couple of the ferns. And by the way, so these come. Oh, just dropped it. These come exactly as shown here. So let me see if I can get this to focus in on. Yeah, there we go. So that's how they come. They're pre-colored. You just punch them out. You would layer them together, obviously. So they come like in little teeny leaves. You have to bend them and shape them as you see fit. Let me just grab this one real quick. I'll focus. There we go. But you can see the variegation in the leaves and the coloration, the veins. Absolutely incredible. So this is a lot. That's a lot of packs. But yeah, these are all ready for the Hobbit project as well. So if you haven't seen those, go check them out. Just go to the website, check it out. It's very very cool. They have basing bits, sizing. If you're wondering about Legion in terms of sizing, I typically will use 2 and 4 mil for grass tufts. The 6 mil are going to be a bit taller. So if you are okay with like kind of like calf height grass, or if you're trying to create sort of a long grass look, they do have 8 mil, and I think they even have 12 mil. 12 mil are like jungle level grasses, so you can do like it's really good for like Vietnam War stuff if you're kind of like looking for like the tall elephant grasses and really covering your bases with bases. They have really everything you need, so and very cool color combos. And again, if you're not really good at complementary colors, check out the duo packs. They're made to complement each other purposefully, so you just no thought, and they've done all the thinking for you. So yeah. um what is Shawn saying? Yeah, they look really interesting. I think they take a little bit of work to make them look realistic. I'm not sure if he's referring to the plastic plants or not, but
Yeah, the plastic plants. Yeah,
the laser cut ones.
the laser cut. Yeah,
I think Shawn they are, but like the work that you really have to do is mostly in the bending and the shaping. If you're concerned about the sheen or the shine, most of them don't have any luster to the leaves unless they're intended to be more lustrous leaves. In which case, you can just hit them down with like an ultra matte varnish, and that will cut down any of the coloration. So, but they've actually done a lot of research. If you go to the website, they'll actually give you like the location of the leaf and like where it's native to, and to just to give you some variety. But I mean, obviously for us, we're doing all fake worlds, make believe worlds, so we can make up the backstory on the leap application. So yeah, cool. All right. Well, we covered a lot. We did I think a great plug for Gamers Grass. Got them some sales during the episodes. Unrelated. That wasn't the intent, but I did want to give a shout out to the fact that they gifted me this stuff, which then I turn around and gift to out. So that's a reason I wanted to bring that up. If you want to continue to help us out on the show, the trainstudio2019 at gmail.com. That's one of the ways you can do donations there. But really, joining the Patreon would be the best thing, and joining the Instagram would be even better. Obviously it would be as good to join the Patreon, but You can join the Instagram. You can help push out the work that's happening there. Go on the Patreon, look for the tutorials. There's multiple levels that you can join on there. But that's really what drives all this. Everything from the Patreon funds everything that we do. And obviously that's something that we want to do. So the show there's no charge to watch the show. There's no charge to watch Friday Night Fights. There's just costs associated with that, but we're okay to keep doing it. I'm okay to keep doing it. And we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. And like I said, hanging out with us for 2.5 hours and taking the content is support enough. So hopefully you guys will have a great rest of the week. Graeme, get some more league games in, and we got to get ours in at some point. I have to get everything in before the 9th of August, because then I'm going to be off the grid for, not off the actual internet grid, but off my home grid for a couple weeks. I'm going to go do some visiting and make some surprise visits, because some people don't know I'm traveling there. They don't listen to the podcast, so shout out to my parents. But they'll be surprised when I arrive, so that'll be cool. And they haven't seen me in a bit, so hopefully they remember who I am. So there's that. So back to school, not back to school. That's still a ways off, my friend. I'm trying not to think about school for a bit. So trying to enjoy my vacation. So, all right, Graeme, I appreciate you stepping in and doing that super long duty there. And hopefully I didn't keep you from anything else. I'm going to go watch a baseball game right now. No spoilers. And I'm going to jump off because Ryan doesn't follow the rules, and he'll probably post a score here in about 30 seconds. So have a great night, everyone. Cheers.
Bye, guys.
Later.
Later.